At 5:59 p.m. We can stand and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have an article? Chris Caruso, Laura Lindbergh,
Chris Fowler,
Kathleen Garcia.
John Harrington.
And then if the members in the room, we'll go around, and if you don't mind stating your name just for our minutes transcriptionist, please try to speak loudly. Start with you.
Aaron Cochran. Edward Cochran. Alexander Cochran. Samuel Cochran.
Donna Gravel.
Scott Smith, Armin Burville,
Mike Preston, ADC.
Peter DeSantis, facility supervisor.
Allison Turcott.
Eric Lambert, Fire Chief, first and last name.
Cheryl McDonald, Trust Fund
Nice to meet
Trustee. Beth Farrell, Police Chief.
John Sutterly, Fire Department.
And then we will go to citizens' comments. This is the agenda item for anybody who would like to speak. Would be given 3 minutes to state comments. Again, it's not a discussion or intended to be back and forth, but an opportunity for the public to share. Is there anybody who would like to speak for citizens? Yes, I would. Please feel free to come up here and state your name for the minutes transcription.
You don't. Okay.
Sorry,
It's okay.
My name is Donna Gravel. And I would like to see a few things change, if possible. The community page, the town of Allenstown, or wherever comments are posted, I feel they should be posed for questions to town leadership or comments to post town activities. Not the negative comments, because that just doesn't solve anything or accomplish anything. I really don't think it serves the purpose to air grievances on the decisions that may have been made at a board of selectmen meeting. I think that should be done amongst the board. People who post negative comments should be encouraged to get involved, whether they sit on a board, because that's how we all got here, right? We all got involved at one point in time. I worked with you, I worked with several people in this room. Be a part of the solution. Don't keep this thing going, because you have ideas that could be beneficial. You just need to join us and participate. But I think most of all, after listening to last week's meeting, I think it's important to promote leadership among the board, be fair and open-minded, whether you agree with each other or not. There's 2 people in my house, we never agree on anything, trust me. And I'm sure there's a lot of you. And John, department head, you're not gonna agree on anything. But I think it's important that when you're in front of the town, you're expressing yourself as one unit, not 4 different units. That's not a good look. And I'm hearing this up in, not just Allenstown. I think it's very proper to raise anyone's voice during a selectmen meeting. We all feel a certain way, and I don't think that solves anything. I think it just creates more. And I think with everybody here, everybody can work together as one unit. That's what I would like to see. Because when I volunteer and I hear, where are you from? And I say, Allenstown. Oh, you got big issues over there. I don't forget about it. You know, I think it's important. We have a lot to offer in this town, and I think it's important that we work together to see what we can offer. Make things practical, for people. Not, negativity.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Okay, hearing no more citizens' comments, we'll move on to our department and committee reports, starting with a future town hall update from the facility supervisor, Peter DeSantis.
Hi, thank you. Not too much to add. We're making progress every week. All the interior walls are finished, all the ceilings are done. That contractor just has the customer counter to finish in the tax collector's office or clerk, which is good. Patricia and I have been getting the lighting done. I mean, we're really making progress now. Today, over the weekend, I've been waxing some floors in some of these offices that are like completely painted, ready to go, so. The third floor is almost already done, both conference rooms are done completely, so. We set up the big conference table that Chad had, that used to be in the police department. In one of the conference rooms, it's almost as big as this room, and we used it for a meeting the other day, so yeah, it's going well. Any other questions really? No, not really much to add, but. We did turn the heat on in the building last week because it was quite warm in there. Well, they turned it on for a couple hours this morning, because they requested, pre-K requested, but it's off again. Yeah,
Thank you for all your work.
no problem. And again, I wanna thank, John and his guys coming over the other day, to talk to help out with the flagpole, and we took the letters off the side of the building. And Ernest people painted again today and that, and who else am I forgetting? We've had a couple of people, Chad was over last week, who helped them, so it's been a lot of help from a lot of people. It's good when I usually call, they're like, yeah, we'll be right over, so.
Yeah, those letters have been on there a long time.
Yeah, now I have to pay, because, yeah, it was actually before they were painted, because it,
Oh,
yeah, so. But we're gonna hold on from painting that, I think, now, because we may change the color scheme at some point. But, yeah, so that's all.
alright.
Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you. If you go on work.
no problem.
And next up is Mike Frassinella from the EDC.
We've got several things lined up in September. A townwide open house on June 6th. And I got the unfortunate notice from Jackie Tate that somebody on Facebook was telling Allison people to go to Pembroke County College.
Oh.
Yeah, let's it's a yard sale.
Yeah.
You gotta make a big deal about it. We're having 2 concerts in June. On the 13th, we're having a recap of the Last Stand Country Band. They performed last May. We were at the school. And so it's back here. It didn't really work out at the school for concerts. We're also having local talent. A teenager named Olivia Conway. Who's up and coming country star. She plays at a lot of local venues.
I think she did a homestay last year too. I believe she was in a little pavilion with her guitar. I think that was her.
She was in the old home day parade. She was on.
Oh, yeah, I think she did school too.
So. My mother's were both the ages.
That's my person.
So I'm trying to get her to see if she can get another local musician to share. Since give Brenda this exposure to some local talent. This month I'm gonna be submitting a request to our source for permission to use the utility poles to hang our flags and banners. And I got 2 weeks ago, I got a request from a resident who a hometown hero down in Brantford.
Mike, I just wanna comment on
Next.
this. We did get notification of Eversource will now be charging the town the signage. Oh, yeah, so just be aware of that. And,
Be
maybe
aware, does help.
offer that
What
you
does that
can
mean?
speak to them.
Can't. Or
Well, when you speak to them, you may wanna say what it's for and ask if that would be something they charge the town for.
Other than that, as far as businesses, there'll be 2 grand openings in May. The double decker convenience stores moved around the corner. So sadly, the owner of the property that we're in passed away, and there's nobody maintaining the property. So that particular business decided to move into the empty craft area space. The local news, auto repairs also happy. And vertically grand opening to their business. Same thing, and the most obvious thing is the walls are going up at the new McDonald's. And other than that, there's a lot of trees missing from the Port Sand gravel pit. They're slowly working on plans to develop that property. Hoping to get that to make a presentation. At a public hearing, at a public meeting, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to our town administrative report.
Just a few things. There was a slight change in the a previously approved fire system installation cost. You were previously approved $30,495 for the ADS fire system. They had to add some additional devices. So I'm going to need approval for an additional $441 on top of that. To come out of the capital reserve fund, new municipal building.
And that's included in our consent calendar for today.
I believe it is. No, it is not. No, correct. So I need a motion in a second to approve the additional $441,000 for the new amount.
141,000.
It is. Sorry. $31,377. Capital Reserve Fund, new municipal building.
So moved. Second,
All in favor?
Diane, Tricia, Laura.
Kathleen, aye.
Thank you. And then I had 2 additional items that were in the consent calendar to come from the Capital Reserve Fund that were approved last Thursday. The installation of the lintels for $6,600 at AES. Isn't there one other?
Should be a key electrical invoice, it should be 8, I believe.
I'm gonna add that in.
I know you sent it to us in the documents.
Yeah, see, more documents and us. It being like it's only laws.
That did not make it in the consent calendar, but I did send you the invoice.
We voted on it last.
Key electric, no, that was a new one.
That was a new one, the committee approved on Thursday
Okay.
for the last 2 weeks since, or.
Yeah, it's only the lintel made it in.
I have,
Do you have that amount, Peter?
looking for right now.
Is it gonna be in this folder, do you think? You can put it in here?
My recollection was 58 something, so if somebody,
You know what, we may have to please. I don't have an exact number for you.
I can look that up if you wanna push it back.
It's
For
on
a
the,
few minutes.
it's on the agenda on the website, I did see it there.
Yeah, just post it with the documents.
For the lintels, that the document that was there was an estimate, Is that something we're signing tonight or?
You're approving the ability for us to move forward with the work. Once we get the invoice, it'll be part of the manifest.
So the key electrical was a total of $6,448.55.
That's it. Do you give me that number again?
$6,448.55.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that's Key Electric to come out of the capital reserve fund for the new municipal building for work down at AES.
Fair motion?
So moved.
Diane?
Second.
All in
Trish?
favor?
Diana.
Laura?
Chris, I?
Kathleen, I.
Sorry for that mix up. Appreciate the help.
Yeah, good.
And you'll approve the lentil with the consent calendar. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
And we will move on to the consent calendar. Were there any items that any members of the board wanted to amend? I did just want to take out 28, number 28, the pay rate change for Jessica Tangway, and discuss that in other business. All 28 items are considered routine and will be approved in one motion. Items have been sent to the board members to review prior to this meeting, and copies were posted with the meeting agenda for public review. I will look for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So second.
All in favor?
Diana. Sunshine. Laura.
Chris, I?
Kathleen, I. Okay, and then we'll move on to the regular agenda, and we'll begin with the finance director.
Sure, but can we consider letting the fellowship church speak first, so we can cut them loose? Or that's what they're, okay.
I thought we were putting Scott first, just because we're coming.
What's that?
I thought Scott was going first, because we're
Oh.
putting 100 and something.
Oh, okay.
dollars now.
Where are you from?
Okay.
You're not, okay.
Then you have
Alright.
to down.
Okay.
Good morning, Scott. Sit. Sit.
Good evening, everybody.
Okay, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. My name's Scott Smith again. I don't know that I've met all of you or I haven't met any of you yet. I work for Municipal Resources, and I've been working here now since October, I would say, 2025. I'm just trying to help out the finance department. I got a series of questions. I don't know how you'd like to proceed.
I felt so bad. I didn't know that we were gonna. I didn't know that we're gonna be on the agenda until Thursday, so, and I really wanted to maximize our time with you, because I know I had a lot of questions in this area, so I was so excited to see that you were on. So I sent them to you ahead of time, so I didn't want to be bamboozling you. I'd like to start with question 1, and that's my biggest concern right now, is when you compare the 2025 actual expenditures and look at the 2026 default spending plans submitted by the various departments to comply with our default budget, and then take into account that actual expenses are already accrued and some increases that we're expecting in 2026. Do you think the town is okay to stick to those proposed spending plans? I've done up some spreadsheets that I think we're in trouble.
Well, I think if you're anticipating this, I'll call it an unanticipated $100,000 in legal expenses that wasn't planned for and isn't part of your default budget, isn't part of the budget. I would probably start preparing for that now. Typically, what I've seen done in other places is the first thing they would do, especially early in the year, is start looking at any discretionary spending that might be within the budget. Things that can wait, basically. Anything that you have to spend money on, you spend money on, of course. But if you have things, supplies, capital equipment, computers, things that can wait for a while, I would start compiling a list of those and just waiting on those for a while. So if it's something that the department can continue to operate without for a few months until you start getting your bearings and have a better idea, because you are fairly early in the year. And everything's just a projection. That's the thing with projection. So it becomes more accurate as you move forward, but early in the year, it's much more difficult. So that is probably a pretty typical way to address something like that until you have a better idea of where you're at or whether you're actually going to incur those legal fees for some reason.
Thank you. And then you kind of answered my second question there. What are the best changes that we could make to decrease our spending and limit long-term impact? And that kind of falls into that. What are the best money sources for us to be using? We have capital reserves, we have revolving. Are there constraints? What are the benefits of using one over the other?
Sure, I don't know that there's ever a best money source. Obviously, if they're available to you, and you can use them for their specified purpose, that's a good thing to do. Capital reserve funds are typically restrictive, of course, as everybody knows. So they're intended to be that way, so they have to be used for the purpose that they were intended. And usually there's a plan in place to use those. So, the example would be if we created a capital reserve for a fire truck. So typically you're gonna wanna know that we need to replace the fire truck, say in 10 years. We wanna put so much away for each of those 10 years. So then once we get to that limit, we can buy a fire truck, and that's what you would plan and use those for. Capital reserve funds are good because they can control your tax rate, bumps in your tax rate because you might need a lot of money for a fire truck where you save. The difficult thing with capital reserve funds is they compete with other current resources when you're trying to fund your budget. So quite often, your funding for your capital reserve funds is one of the first places that people will go to lower the budget. Because the alternative is to take money, stash it away, and then you're looking at reducing staff or programs or equipment or things like that. So there's always that rub, that competition. Revolving accounts are good because what they do, but they also have some restrictions. So as long as you meet the definition of that, you can use those. They have a specified revenue source that funds them that I'm sure you guys are aware of. And the good thing about those, what you want to do, I guess, I don't know if I would call it a restriction, but you want to plan out, you want to look at those in kind of a long-term basis. So the benefit is they're non-lapsing. You have a specified revenue source that comes into that revolving account. It stays in that revolving account. It doesn't lapse into your general fund. And then whatever those purposes are that you want to use it for, you do want to try to take a long-term view to be able to use those. I think that's a better, it's just a more linear way of using those funds and helping yourself. So that would help your budget, whether you have a default budget or if it's just a regular budget where you always have unexpected things happen over the course of the year. So it can help with that as well.
Thank you. And do you have any recommendations about the best way for us to approach building our proposed budget for 2027 that's likely to be passed by voters?
I don't have any specific recommendations. I mean, there's a couple things. I don't know why. We've seen it around the state, and it seems to be kind of a recent phenomenon that places are getting default budgets. It seems to kind of ebb and flow. And you go through this for a couple of years, for whatever the reason might be. But sometimes you can look at the information that you're giving voters and how you're presenting the budget. That may help. The other thing one thing about Allenstown that I've noticed is you guys do have it's not audited yet, but you have a fairly healthy fund balance. I think if we can get caught up on the audits and have a good level of comfort on what that fund balance truly is from an auditor perspective, I think you can then start looking at using some of that and maybe leveling out what your budget is. And that may be something that would help, fund programs and get voters to support the budget.
Thank you.
I just follow up with a question on this, with regards to the voters and approach them. What is your viewpoint, or, what do you suggest with regards to presenting more warrant articles, you get more specific, like, do the voters approve pay increases? Do the voters approve, breaking things out from your operational budget a little bit more?
Yeah, I could go either way on that. I think it depends on the community. Quite often, when you see the ones that are for wage increases, they're union contracts that would be a separate one. So it depends how you look at it. I live in a town that loves warrant articles, so when I have to vote, it's usually about 5 pages long.
Yeah.
And I don't love it when I do it, but, and we've had default budgets as well, so it doesn't guarantee that you won't have a default budget. But it does give the voters kind of an a la carte appeal, so, like I said, I can go either way on that one from a personal preference, and I'm not sure. I'm not aware of any statistics that says, a budget was more successful because they had 30 warrant articles as opposed to 25.
Thank you, I appreciate that feedback.
And then I'll jump in with the next one. What is the best way to use an expenditure report? I think we've struggled with this because, like, even right now, our expenditure report shows 102,000 in legal, but we just approved another 15,000 from February. So you look at it and it says we're 33% through the year, but a lot of times, even last meeting, we were approving expenditures from January, February, March. Again, we are. So we're not really seeing all those bills from April. And also, I think if departments are only using that information source and watching their own budget, they're not realizing, they don't know what every other department's anticipating. And my concern mostly right now is our administrative budget, which is the one that is about to overexpend substantially.
Yeah, actually, what I would say, one common way to help with that anyways, and actually, John has approached us about this, and we kind of held off a little bit, but it's implement purchase order process. And he's been asking for that. We just felt when we got on board, we got here, there were other priorities to get the general ledger in order to do that. And it just felt like throwing in a new process, trying to clean up the current process, if that makes any sense, might not be the best approach. It may just make more of a mess. But doing that where then you can start encumbering funds and see those in addition to the expenditures would help a lot. And I know that's something the community wants to do, and I would hope that at some point here in the near future, we can get to a point where we're comfortable with what we're doing, what we need to do on a day-to-day basis, and then add that to it.
I'd like to question on that. Currently, is there a monthly report being provided to all the departments? It shows breakdown of all the departments and what their expenditures were.
I'll be honest, I don't know that. It's not something I've done yet. It's certainly something that can be done. The departments also can have access to the financial software where they can do it themselves. I'm not even sure if they're doing that yet.
Yeah.
You're doing it?
I have all the reports on
Okay, so
bi-weekly basis.
So they can do it themselves, yeah. So they're able to run those reports and see them themselves.
I personally like the idea of a forced report and everybody gets the same information, usually that would happen maybe the second week of the month following, if you look.
Yeah, typically they will have access to their departmental information. So the police department should have access to all the police department information in their budget. When you get into the issue of departments versus departments, where maybe one department is spending higher levels than another department, that usually comes from the administrator, then the administrator will start looking at that as a budget as a whole, and in the board of selectmen, when you get them, you look at it in its entirety, but usually the departments are really focused on it.
If you don't mind, Trish, to help answer your question is, John's a very big stickler on making sure invoices are in a timely fashion, and Veronica usually puts all the AP stuff in besides payroll in the big purchase orders pretty quickly. So we have a good picture on a regular basis, besides those purchase orders that might take, like the dispatch one that took a little while to come through. So you have a good picture daily. I could look daily.
Thinks the forest report is good. It does allow every department to be informed about the other department's activities and to anticipate, then the finance director can anticipate where shortfall might happen
So-
and start to make a plan with the town administrator and the department heads of where those shortfalls.
And John puts it on the finance page every Monday, so as department heads, we can see that every single Monday with all the updates. So we are very proactive as department heads and with John to make sure things there. So sending out another copy as it's already coming out. On Mondays, we get it actually, I just printed it out before I came here on the 20th. It's instantaneous.
My next question is about separating the retirement and benefits costs for each department. When we're going through our budget creation and management, it's a question that gets asked by the budget committee every year for like the past 20 years. And it does make it difficult when we're discussing staff issues, to really understand the impact of those positions. A lot of times people are just looking at the salary number, not realizing.
No, yeah, it can absolutely be done, and that would really be up to you guys and how you'd like to see that. It's not unusual it's probably typically in larger communities, but we'll actually budget it that way, so they won't have that personnel department. They'll actually break those costs into each individual department. Because it does give a kind of a better sense of what you're really spending on each individual department. And to some extent, I think it forces you can be a little more accurate, because you do have to kind of break that down on an individual basis. So it certainly can be done.
What's the process? Is that something that a board of selectmen could choose to do when they're having the budget, when we're creating our budget, or does the budget committee need to adopt that?
Well, I would think it would be the board requesting that, and then it gets done at the administrative level. So you would want the departments developing that up front. So it would be a lot of work. It'd probably be more confusing if the town developed the budget very similar to the current budget. And then when we got to the board of selectmen or got to the budget committee, they started saying, okay, can we piece this out and move it around? That would become very difficult and confusing. So that format of the budget really should start at the department level and be built up through. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you. And then the next questions that I have are about your position. So what specific duties are you completing as a subcontracted manager?
What I've been doing, my focus right now has been pretty simple, to be honest with you, is when I got here, the 2024 general ledger was not quite ready for the audit. Which put the town quite far behind, so there's basically three things I've really been focused on trying to get caught up on, and that's to get the 2024 audit completed, which is pretty close. There's a couple items outstanding, but once those get satisfied, that audit should be done. It's getting the general ledger and the financial statements in a position where the 2025 audit can occur sooner than what the 2024 audit did. We have that scheduled right now for June of this year. So a little bit, I think will still happen in June, but a little bit of it is just contingent on, we've got to get the 2024 audit done first before they do that. But I think we'll be able to do that. After getting the 2025 general ledger and that information, it's been getting the monthly reconciliations done in a timely basis, which I've been able to fairly well do. And when I say it's just simple, like cash, you know, I think you guys are aware because it's been reported out in prior years' audit reports, but cash has been a real problem having that reconciled on a month-to-month basis, and that's something that really needs to be done on a month-to-month basis. So for the month of March, you know, I'm in April, that those March I should be reconciled in cash for cash through March, which we are now. So it's getting those monthly reconciliations up to date, and then, you know, it's just all that simple stuff. It's the cash, it's the tax collections, having those reconciled. You have a lot of payroll liabilities that need to be reconciled and worked on. And then obviously you have your revolving funds and you have your escrows. And it's just a matter of keeping those up to date and keeping those reconciled so that you don't run into where you're behind and now you're chasing. You're trying to do a whole year's of reconciliation, you know, 6 months, 8 months after the year is closed. You know, that's just not a good position to be in.
Can I follow up, sir? Are you seeing that we have a sufficient process in place right now to keep those monthly reconciliations timely?
I think so, yeah, that's really what I've tried to do. A lot of them aren't difficult because you have good staff here. You know, the tax office, town clerk's office is really good, so it's been easy to reconcile to their information. The times that it takes a little bit more is during tax season, of course, because you just have so much more activity. Things like that. The worst problem or the biggest problem with your cash accounts was getting, and this isn't just Allenstown, this is all over the place, but it's the credit card, and not the credit cards we use, but the credit cards we receive. So getting those reconciled and developing a process to get those reconciled took a little bit of time, but I've done that, and I'm working with your current treasurer now too. Because basically what we need to do is break out the batches. So everything that gets done for the credit cards, you may be familiar, all comes through in batches. But then at the end of the day, those batches get totaled, and whatever your total is, that gets posted to the general ledger. And it can, and then when they settle all those batches, they settle at different days and different times. And it can be very difficult to tie those out back to what your totals are if you're not doing that. And then when you're not reconciling those, if they don't settle, or if you have an ACH that gets returned or something, you start missing that stuff, and it's just not a good place to be in. So I think, yes, I don't know if we're 100% there, but we're getting those processes in place where that does happen.
And how many hours are you contracted to work for Allenstown per week, and how much of those are here and remote?
I work right now, I don't know that we have an upset limit, meaning where I haven't, where John hasn't come to me and says you have to work only 8 hours a week, or so basically I come one day a week, typically Tuesdays. I'm here Tuesdays. If anybody has questions for me, I'm here. And then the rest of the time I work remotely. So sometimes that depends, and then how much I work will depend, sometimes the time of the month. So meaning like last week, I did a lot of the cash reconciliation. So I did some while I was here. I did the credit card account when I was remote. So I had a few more hours in my office as opposed to on site. I get questions from time to time. I did do a lot of the budget work this year when I came on board. So I updated the portal, I updated your software with the budget information. I did a lot of that remotely. That added some time, but I would say I have to look at the invoices, and John may have a better sense than I do, but it was more when we were trying to get through the 2024, but now I'm probably averaging somewhere between I don't know, 1 and 2 days a week,
Okay,
would say.
so you're doing about 20 hours, or those 10-hour days or 8-hour days?
No, those would be 8-hour days, so I'm probably doing somewhere between, on average, 12 and 16, I would guess. I'm not sure it's that much, but 12 and 16, I'd say.
Okay. And you kind of already answered this, but will this be enough time even during the budget and audit season, or like you said, as things get heavier, you tend to put more time in?
Yeah, and you'll have to, as we get through, I've read some of these questions, some of my answers are all gonna start depends. So
Yes.
so it depends. It depends what the expectations are. And, you know, if we can get the general ledger, we can keep that in sufficient order. The audit time is not gonna be that great because a lot of it's already gonna be reconciled. So we're not gonna be chasing it. The budget just depends to what level of expectation I get involved, what the expectations are. You know, a lot of it didn't take a lot of time because a lot of it was taking the Excel spreadsheets I was getting from the town and was uploading them into the software and having those done and reviewed and making sure they were accurate. A lot of it was just getting into the DRA portal and uploading information and doing that. So it depends on what level and how involved I get in the budget would drive that.
And what is the hourly rate that Allenstown is paying right now?
110.
And what would the additional cost be to include the completion of the monthly financial report that I sent you? Do you think that would take a long time?
No, I don't think so. And I think it'd be one of those things. I think the first go around, it might take a couple hours to kind of get it set
That's what I
up.
was thinking too, because you wouldn't have to change everything.
No, that's right. Once it's set up, you know, I almost was thinking it probably wouldn't, once it's set up, it wouldn't make a huge difference. But I'll say a couple hours maybe to get it set up, and I'll just say an hour a month, just because it's extra work. I don't even know if it would be that.
Nice, well, that's less, because I was worried that it might take
No,
more time than that, but.
Some of it isn't applicable on a monthly basis, you know, so it's just information that's good to have. I think it's good questions. I think it's good that you're asking for that information. Some of it, you know, just is kind of monthly if you're almost looking for budget projections and things like that. So it's a matter of working that out and seeing how that's gonna work and how to keep that updated.
And then, I guess, so we're not, I thought that we had, your goal was to go get us through the audit, and then after that, it was gonna change to you being in-house 1 day a month. And working some mixture of remotely, but that has not happened yet. Right now, you're just kind of,
It hasn't happened yet. I think the goal is, my understanding is maybe knock it back to a couple days a month. But we haven't had any specific discussions yet about how that's going to look. But I do know that that's something that's been discussed.
because right now, when you come in, we're paying you from the time you leave your house to the time you get here, and then home like travel, or was it just mileage?
Yeah, it's a discounted rate, but there is mileage and it's, I forget what it is. I'd have to look at the contracts. I don't say, but it's a discounted rate. And there's so many miles initially, they don't charge for the first so many miles are part of it.
I'd like to interject with a couple of questions here. Through your connection with MRI or your employment with MRI, are you receiving regular trainings and updates on these changes of the state RSAs and the federal regulations that might impact?
Yeah, we keep on top of that, and I'm still actually an active member with the New Hampshire GFOA, so I go to that, like, I'll be going to their conference in May, so we stay active with GFOA and NHMA to stay on top of those things.
And one other adjacent question. So with regards to that and just general financing budgeting, are you making recommendations to the departments based on, you know, what you know about changes in the RSAs or what you see happening in their budget?
Honestly, I would be happy to. I haven't yet. Like I said, I've kind of had a pronged approach of trying to get the audits up to date. I really think that's really important because the longer behind the audits you are, the less valuable they are when you get them, you know, so here we are, we're in the second quarter of 2026, and we're still trying to work out that 2024 audit, so other than getting the audit and getting those adjustments, and giving us some level of confidence on what we're seeing in 2025, it just loses its importance and its value the longer you go out.
And do you know how much we are actually saving by limiting this position?
Well, I'm assuming when you say limiting this position, you mean as opposed to having a full-time finance director?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, only because I don't know what you would plan to pay somebody, so you can, I mean, that's something I'm sure John could calculate for you if you guys had a general idea, if you knew what you would tend to pay salary and benefits for a full-time finance director.
I think we have like 92,000 in the line, that doesn't include the benefits.
Yeah.
But we're using that line to support other positions. So.
Yeah, so that would really be something you guys could calculate, you can see what our monthly bills are.
Yeah.
And do that and get an idea of what that.
Okay, thank you. And what qualifications does a finance director need?
Well, from my perspective, I think some of the most important things are, that they've got a good, strong accounting background. It's specifically municipal accounting. I think that's very important in this, and it's not the easiest thing to find. I think if they're a good communicator, I think being able to discuss these issues, especially the budget issues or the finance issues, and do it in such a way that it makes sense and people understand. That can be very helpful, because if you don't do that, then it can actually cause a lot of consternation as people get confused, things like that. And then just being able to work close with other staff, the town administrator, department heads, and things like that. Those are the immediate things that come to mind.
But they actually have a college degree in
Oh, yeah,
finance.
yeah,
municipal
they would have
finance.
And that's what I say, yeah, you'd want a college degree, you'd want somebody with it, I mean, if it's my preference, I want somebody with an accounting degree. And I want somebody that's really neat, especially for a town like Allenstown or the smaller town, because I want somebody with a college degree, somebody that has an accounting degree, strong accounting background, has actual practical experience in accounting, preferably municipal.
Yeah, I think municipal accounting is so important.
Mhm.
And who manages the year-end closeout and prepares the audit right now? I'm assuming that's been you, but I didn't know if maybe you were tag teaming with anybody else, or if it's you are doing it.
A lot of staff is involved in that. Ultimately, your finance director is the one who's gonna manage the year-end closeout. And is gonna reconcile your general ledgers and do that. But a lot of other staff are involved in that, because, obviously your tax office, town clerk's office is very involved, because they have a lot of records the auditors will to review. The finance clerk is very involved, because she's got access to the payroll information, the AP information that they need access to, that they'll use for testing requirements, things like that. Your treasurer is very involved. Your trustees of trust funds have their reports that they have to supply. Your library board of trustees have information that they have to supply. So although ultimately your finance director is kind of putting everything together in terms of the GL, there's a lot of people that are very involved in that audit prep. So it really is kind of a team effort. And then in terms of preparing the audit, we would give them the general ledger information with the auditors ultimately prepared.
And then how many hours do you think audit prep takes alone? Just, I know it's happening continuously throughout the year by keeping those good records, but when it comes to audit season, like how much time?
If you do it, if you stay on top of it, we're not talking a lot. From my perspective, for the finance director, it takes a little bit more because of the people that are having to pull records that they typically don't want to do that, don't have to do, right? Because, they're doing their job every day, and then all of a sudden these auditors show up and they're trying to do their job, and the auditors are standing there, can you pull this, can you do this? So it's a little different thing. But if you're taking care of your reconciliations each month, a lot of the stuff that needs to be reconciled and presented to the auditors is already done when you're in January. It's just a matter of course. It's just a matter of picking up some additional stuff. So you are going to pick up some additional receivables to close out the year end. There's going to be some additional payables you're going to pick up that you'll have to pull out. You're going to have to accrue payroll. Do that, record your accrued payroll, look at your smaller funds, and then there may be things from time to year that are different. You may have a road project or something that has retainage in it, you'll need to pick up that retainage table and record that. So some of those things aren't huge things and they're different from year to year depending on what's going on within the town, but that's kind of what you're doing.
I have a follow-up question, please. So you mentioned that they're still working on the 2024 audit. Would increasing your hours working on that help to expedite that, and would you be available to do that?
The answer to the question is yes, I would always be available to help whatever I can do, but there's nothing for me to do at this point. So they've done their field work, they have everything. So what,
Wait on that.
yeah, there's a couple issues, they're waiting on a couple things. One of the things they're waiting on your OPEB report. And that my understanding is the OPEB report was under review last week and it's gonna be distributed this week, so they should have that this week. And then I think they're just waiting on some additional documentation from the library board of trustees. Those are the two things that I understand that they're waiting for. And I think when they have that, they'll be able to close that out. They've already given me some adjusting journal entries, some of the other funds besides the general fund, but I think I'll get those. And then, so that's kind of what we're waiting for. So it's kind of out of our hands, so to speak.
From what you've seen, do you expect that we might get any hits from our auditors on, things that might be done erroneously?
Well, I don't think you won't get anything that's done erroneously. I think it's gonna be I think there'll be comments like there has been in the past, because I know they did come out before I was here. And I think you're gonna have that same comment that there were certain things that weren't reconciled. So they came out and just the reconciliations weren't done, so then they had to go and that's why they were here, they left and then it had to be rescheduled, so. I would anticipate more comments like that.
And that kind of what led into the risk of errors and audit findings, and mismanagement. What happens if we miss our deadlines and who's responsible if something goes wrong financially for the town?
Yeah, that's a real broad question, so that's another, it depends. But in terms of your audit, there's like no statutory deadline to have to do your audit or have your audit. It's recommended, they always want it done within, have it actually completed, usually within about 9 months after the end of the close of your fiscal year. But
it does, if we don't have it done, it does impact our ability to borrow or to get grants, though, because they usually do request
it can
that.
affect your ability to get grants, it can affect your ability to borrow. At a minimum, it could affect if you're trying to borrow independently, what your rate is gonna be. So that part of it is true, that's absolutely true. So, and plus it snowballs because when you're that far behind, it just pushes everything else behind. And then you don't get a good, one of the big things that everybody's always asking for, what's our unassigned fund balance, what's our fund balance, what's the results of operations, and you never have if you don't have your audit, or you're not, at least not up to date on your audits, you lack a confidence that the numbers that you're looking at are really accurate. So that's one of the big things as far as I see. So when you look at that information, or when you ask me for information, I can pull stuff out of 2025, but I'm still waiting. I know there's gonna be some adjustments from 2024, and I don't know how that's gonna impact 2025, and it just causes, so you lack kind of that confidence of what you're looking at.
And if something goes wrong financially, if we overspend our budget, when audits are not done, who is financially responsible? Who's considered a responsible, accountable party?
Ultimately, if it's something like the audits aren't done, I guess if there's been some in the news lately about things where audits, places, different municipalities weren't having their audits done, and then all of a sudden they found out they had a huge deficit. For me, I think everybody's involved, everybody's responsible. But ultimately, to me, it's the elected officials, you have that role, you're not actually doing the work, but you do have that responsibility to make sure the work is getting done. So I think by asking these questions and asking for the audit and trying to get the audit, that's a good place to be. You know, so eventually that's what's gonna end up happening.
And then you kind of talked about this a little bit, how many hours it would take to assist our department heads with creating their proposed budgets, because you have not, you just came to us in October, but you haven't been a part of that. I realize you've been really focusing on getting that audit done, and I agree, I agree that's where we needed to put our time and money, but I'm wondering moving forward, once we are caught up on our audits, if it would be possible for you to take a more proactive role with our department heads and assist them when they are creating their.
Yeah, I think
budgets.
absolutely. Yeah, I think especially having the opportunity to be here at the beginning of the process. I think for sure, I don't see why that would be an issue, trying to work with them and just provide whatever information and guidance I can that assist in developing the budget moving forward.
Do you think that would translate into you needing to spend a day or two with each department head? So I'm thinking, how much time is that gonna add on?
Yeah, I don't think it'd be a day or two with each department head. I don't think it would be that much. I don't know, you know, some of it would be just getting together with John to understand the process. I can only assume, because I don't know, because we haven't talked about it, but they must have initially a department head meeting where they talk about the development of the budget and give some direction on how that goes. I could certainly be here for that. And then on the days that I'm here, or if we felt that it required an additional day, I can be here. And then meet with the various department heads and just review their budgets, and go over them with them and provide them information depending on how you want to build that budget. You know, and most of them seem to have the staff and the ability to go back and actually take it and put it into Excel or build it. But certainly I can work with them to create that.
I won't dive into it tonight, but I do think we should discuss making some changes to our budget. I think we're doing it too late in the year. I honestly feel like we should be starting now, planning for next year's budget. I know it's tough because you don't have all of the numbers 100%, but I think we're getting, like this year when we went to the budget committee, the board members, everybody was seeing that budget for the first time pretty much that morning. And it makes it really hard to be efficient and effective and really review that and ask the questions you want to ask, and you're doing it so late in the game, so, but I'll bring that up another.
I'd like to add in a question here. What do you think the role of finance director should be with regards to, you know, we're in a default budget
Mhm.
and, you know, the departments are tasked with, you know, keep an eye on their, well, you know, their budgets and so forth. What do you think the finance director's role is in that scenario
Yeah,
throughout the year?
throughout the year, the finance director's role is to work closely with the department heads and the administrator to review that and go through that and check those numbers and confirm them. So I think you've asked in the additional sheet that you handed out, in a lot of your questions in terms of doing those projections on the budget. I think that's a good role for the finance director, is to do those projections and provide them to the administrator and the department heads, so they can see what we're seeing in finance and have those discussions about kind of where we're at and where we're going. But it has to be a collaborative process, and I think if you develop that and work that, it's a good way to move forward, so everybody's kind of on the same page.
But you haven't been able to really do that because of your focus on the audit stuff.
That's right, I haven't done that at all with the.
And then my next question is about the finance clerk. Can you explain to us the role the finance clerk plays and what they need for qualifications?
Yeah, the finance clerk, right now the finance clerk does AP payroll. Is, I think John oversees it, but kind of does a lot of the HR functions. Takes the town clerks, tax collectors reports, their daily reports, enters those into the GL. That type of, those are the main functions. I'm probably missing other stuff that she does, but those are the main functions. It's getting, you know, those kind of things, that those weekly things or bi-weekly things that need to get done. She's doing those. Qualifications for a finance clerk from my perspective. The must-haves, I think they gotta have good computer skills. I think they've got to have a good attention to detail. I think that's very important. I think if you can find one that's got a bookkeeping background or some accounting background or something, that's always extremely useful in that role. But I guess that's just, immediately, those are the things that come to mind.
So a finance clerk is different than a finance director. They're basically doing the data entry, but they're not making projections. They don't need a degree in finance in order to.
Correct, they're not really doing any reconciliations.
But the work they do is intense. It's daily. It's every
It's
day.
daily, and it's important stuff that gets done. So it's important that people get paid.
Yeah.
It's important that we account for that properly. It's the same with AP, it's important that your invoices get processed timely. And it's really important that they get processed correctly so that things are getting charged appropriately, because that's one of the things where you can run into problems is when things are getting charged properly. You're asking your department heads to review their budget and have an idea and a plan on what's going on within their department, how their spending is going. And if things aren't getting costed out properly, that then can cause problems.
Are you acting as a second set of eyes on the work that our finance clerk is doing at this time, like the manifest and?
Yeah, I haven't yet on the manifest, I will be, that's something that I will start doing. I do get copies of those and review those lightly, but I haven't done a lot of work on that yet, just simply because I just feel like I've been trying to catch up on some of what I consider more critical things at the moment.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Just one, so in a perfect world, would you envision the ratio of people in finance versus people versus the the finance clerk versus finance manager? I mean, what does that ratio look like in a perfect world to make sure we get all the work done? Full-time, part-time,
At the moment, I mean, you need a full, at the moment, I'm thinking full-time, part-time.
full-time clerk,
Yeah, full-time
Part-time.
clerk. Yeah, because the alternative is you're gonna hire a finance director that you're gonna have spending a lot of time doing AP and payroll and stuff that you otherwise wouldn't.
it's below their skill set, so we're
Yeah,
paying a lot of money for.
right,
Yeah.
but that could change. I mean, that's kind of what I'm seeing right now, but I haven't been here that long.
Yeah.
That's kind of, nothing has screamed at me where I said, oh my God, you gotta get a full-time person. Okay, I'm not there yet, but who knows, a year from now, 2 years from now, like things may change in the town, and that's something to pay attention to is things are changing, if things are getting added. If, you may start to see things that start telling you, we've got to really consider this because there's just gonna become a burden, there's just more work. So that's down the road, so it's hard to speculate what my answer would be 2 years from now.
Any other questions?
I'd like to ask one as a department head. So my question, I guess, and we're having quite a discussion about this, is the system right now working effectively?
That's the setup.
The setup we have right now, is that working effectively to accomplish what we need right now?
Yeah, well, that's kind of a tough question to say because we're still playing catch up. I think so. And I think time is going to tell. It's just gonna be, it's gonna be a matter of time. But I think the big issue is gonna be the 2025 audit. Once we can get that 2025 audit and see how that looks and how that comes out, I think that's gonna answer a lot of those questions and where we're at in the current year. But just kind of dealing what we've dealt with, it's difficult to answer that question perfectly at the moment.
Okay, and just another question on top of that, and I only have two more, I apologize. So John, in your expertise, being in Deerfield and being here as the town administrator who's been steering the ship, is the sky falling down, or are we in a present spot where we are managing well?
It's kind of a diverse choice.
I guess the condition we're in right now, because as a department head who's sat here since the fall and listened to the discussion about a finance administrator, I want to speak to Scott's point in regards to the budgets. As a department head, I'm paid a decent amount of money to go to Scott and ask him questions and forecast my budget with the needs that are put forward by the body. Am I correct, Beth? Right, so asking him to predict the budget is not something that is gonna allow me. I know what I need as a department head. And I will tell you, I emailed Scott on Thursday at 5:30 at night, and he answered me by 6:03. So as a department head, my view of the work that John does and that Veronica does and Scott has done has been very quick and very accurate. So the questions and asking, planning for the future, yes, if you want to plan for the future of where we need to be. But as somebody who's been here for many years and I saw the bad, because I was, a person who had to deal with it, and I've seen the good. And I'm telling you right now, as a department head who's leaving this to somebody else's hands, I personally think we are in a decent spot and we are managing quite well for a small town with the positions we have. So I truly think, in my opinion, I know there's been a lot of talk, and if you want to talk about the aspect of what Donna said before she left, is we have direction. And I say that for the sake of this is a comment that was put up and said we had no financial direction. And I think that, again, I will agree with Donna that on social media, we shouldn't be putting these things, but with no finance director, the town manages, the board has no guidance on their spending decisions. I am telling you firsthand as a department head, this man right here should get an apology because he spends many hours and has given me much direction on where we go. Scott has answered my emails religiously to help guide me on certain things. It's as late as this afternoon at 3:30 when I got out of my other job to answer some questions for me on a whim. And Veronica spends many hours putting this AP in, right? And there's times when she's dumped on and she has more than what she needs to do, but she does well handling. So I think, in my professional opinion, as the department head who works here, and Beth may agree or disagree, but I think that, I think the ship is upright. And I think that those three individuals probably deserve some type of apology from Kathleen, because on social media for the world to see that Allenstown is in a fiasco, we are not. We are not without direction. We are 100% directed by somebody who came in and spent a year writing the ship along with Veronica and along with the other people like Rita and Scott to be where we are. So to portray that we're in chaos, I think is something that is not accurate. So I would ask that these individuals may actually get an apology for that. So thank you.
I have a statement that I would like to read, and this I do want verbatim in the minutes. I'll provide it to you after John. Finance directors design systems, verify accuracy, analyze results, and advise leadership. A $6 million budget has real financial complexity, and mistakes or lack of oversight can have a very large impact, as it has. Ongoing budget monitoring, cash flow management, department support, forecasting, internal controls, and capital planning are essential to prevent problems. We've been choosing to accept risk, errors, audit findings, poor planning, and decision-making. Our current situation is just barely functional and has resulted in using a reactive approach instead of a proactive one to managing the taxpayers' money. I realize we've had to move in this direction. I'm not blaming anybody involved in the process. We've decided amongst ourselves to use the processes we've been using. Because we were so behind on audits, it's not my intent to blame anybody, but that is the reality. At a bare minimum, we need budget monitoring, cash flow management, AP payroll oversight, revenue tracking, monthly reporting, department support, and audit and compliance and maintenance. Ideally, we would have forecasting and investment management. We'd have extended analysis and enhanced reporting. Real capital planning and strategic advice and budget development. I would like to point out that our current process for dealing with our finances need to be improved. In the past few years, we've experienced the following deficiencies in areas that are typically handled by a finance director. And this is due to the processes we've chosen to use. Normally, a finance director would review, correct, and approve a finance clerk's work. We have had payroll errors happen, payments that were made late, invoices have errors, everybody's human, everybody makes mistakes, but that's why you wanna have 2 or 3 sets of eyes on those things, and we have experienced those things. A finance director ensures that separation of duties is happening, so one person is not both creating and approving work. I don't know if this has happened recently, but I have heard of times and witnessed with my own eyes times where there hasn't been somebody reviewing, there's just been one person trying to push everything through. A finance director ensures transactions are coded correctly. Department heads are still saying that accounts are not accurate. Again, everybody makes mistakes, I understand that, but when you have somebody that is dedicated to this job, either part-time or full-time, and has more time, and I realize Scott hasn't, he's been focusing on those audits, you don't see those errors as often, and if you do, you catch them much more quickly. A finance director finds and corrects errors made by the department heads, and we've had deposits, expenses to the wrong accounts, we've had missed payments, underpayments, we've had transactions that weren't processed in time. I can tell you firsthand, when I was a clerk, it used to happen quite often. Our full-time finance director would come down and say, there was an online transaction that didn't get processed last month. Because again, like the credit cards, sometimes those things come in, but if you don't have that person there watching, a lot of time can go by, maybe sometimes you don't even catch it at all, you're missing that revenue. Monthly financial reports are something that a finance director does. We haven't had any, since I've sat on this board, we have never received a monthly financial report. We're making big decisions with usually only an expense report. I think that has led to some real consequences for us. A finance director identifies and prevents overspending. We overspent in 2024. That did happen to us. And I'm worried that we're on the cusp of doing it again this year if we don't take steps to stay on top of it. Reviewing transactions for possible fraud and misuse is something else that a finance director does. We have had credit cards mistakenly used inappropriately in the past. Our finance director would catch that. We've had items charged to funds that don't legally allow it. We've had receipts for reimbursements that have been paid when they weren't really actually authorized or allowed. A finance director ensures proper documentation is obtained and created. Authorizing fund transfers have not been done in a timely manner. We've had documents that have been missing. We've had both late or not at all. The finance director prepares schedules for capital planning and spending. Our department heads and boards have been doing this solo without guidance. They don't have a financial education. A lot of times your department heads are working their way up through the rank. They're put in this administrative position without any finance degree. They may have some knowledge from working there all the years, but they don't have that same level of oversight that a finance director is going to bring to them and the guidance they're going to be able to offer. A finance director does bank reconciliations. Those were not done in the past, as Scott just explained that. It's a very important to do the bank reconciliations. I understand why he's focusing his time on that. Absolutely, he should, because it makes your audits impossible. And it has literally cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. A finance director does project long-term costs and impacts of contracts, capital expenses, and fees. The BOS recently agreed to a fire department union without any idea of what the financial or long-term impacts would be on the town. The BOS canceled a trash contract without financial justification that resulted in higher costs for the taxpayers and a lower default budget in 2026. The BOS took over AES with limited money for maintenance and improvements, but we still haven't discussed a future financial plan with a financial professional on the best way to go about taking over that property and being able to make sure we can take care of it and maintain it. A finance director develops and adjusts purchasing, accounting, and financial policies as needed. Bills have been paid and contracts sought without following the correct financial policies. Sometimes this was done without knowledge and sometimes due to circumstances, but the BOS wasn't advised until a board member asked. Some of these instances may indicate that we need to change our policies, which again is something that a finance director would look at and suggest for us. Changes are proposed and passed every year at the state level that affect municipal budgeting and appropriations processes. These are easier to miss and violate without a finance director. A finance director also implements financial software procedures, ensures compliance. They train department heads on proper practices. Department heads are using their own accounting and reporting methods right now, making it very hard to review and understand the data that they supply. Due to the different methods, it's also very difficult to make comparisons. There are discrepancies on what even constitutes an account balance, depending on who you talk to. A finance director also identifies and conveys risks and cost drivers to the appropriate people. We had contracts canceled without financial advice on how that would affect future contracts, licenses, and budgets. AES was purchased with no understanding really of the substantial increase that would result in our property insurance, so it could be adequately prepared for. Our default budget did allow us to bump that up, but that's something that we should have known and been anticipating in advance. Paving has been defunded without long-term financial implications of that decision being discussed and monitored. A finance director would predict yearly revenues and monitor collections of tax revenues, fees, state aid. There are no reports right now made to the board about this. Like, we're not keeping up on that at all. I trust that John is doing the best he can and others are. A finance director would coordinate borrowing for leases and capital purchases. Right now, we just have various department heads doing that themselves, again, without a background in finance or maybe the education. They could be missing deals that maybe we could be getting. We don't really know. We're not in the loop on that. We don't have a financial professional involved. A finance director recommends strategies for capital planning, reserve, and revolving funds. The BOS has been authorizing expenditures from the capital reserve accounts as needed, but no plan of how those funds can and should be replenished has been developed. Other financial decisions being made will impact our ability to replenish those funds in future use schedules. No prioritization of which funds should be funded or in what amounts has been determined. The BOS are agents to expend on reserve and revolving funds, but are not regularly provided with account balances or the health of these funds for current or future use. The benefits and repercussions of creating one fund type over another, capital versus revolving, are not clearly understood by all board members, committee members, and the public. A new capital improvement plan has not been reviewed yet by the BOS with a financial professional so that we can see the big picture of the future needs of all the departments and create a financial plan to get there. A finance director explains financial information to boards, committees, and the public. Many board and committee members are making financial decisions without their questions being answered or financial advice given. They are relying solely on the department heads' definitions of their needs without a clear understanding of our financial position and what we can afford. Many financial questions are asked at the deliberative session, public budget hearings, budget committee meetings, and BOS meetings that can't be answered before these decisions are made. Finance director advises the BOS on what the town can afford and the current long-term financial implications of various options. The fire department union formation supported with no financial information. Raises were given to employees with no discussion on how that would affect future years' budgets and the possibility of a continued default budget that would be $300,000 less in the next year. There was absolutely no discussion about that. The BOS staff decisions or make staff decisions without financial guidance. A finance director leads and prepares for the entire audit process. Our missed scheduling of our 2024 audit at the end of 2025. So we were unable to fund capital reserve accounts this year in 2026 for the second year in a row. Those accounts are quickly being depleted. It also creates poor credibility for us as a town, unable to obtain loans or grant funding. A finance director resolves audit findings. That can be a timely process in itself. A finance director builds proposed budgets with the department heads and the BOS. Department heads have proposed yearly budgets that are higher than the voters are likely to approve. We've seen this the past 2 years after one budget only passed by 7 votes. Instead of looking at that and then making changes and anticipating it in the following year, it was like we did nothing. When a default budget is passed, departments struggle to identify the most cost-effective decreases, and the BOS struggle to identify wants versus needs. That's something that a finance director could help us with. Warrant articles are proposed and presented to the voters without guidance from a finance professional. So we did come in, even last year when I proposed doing the warrant article for a contingency fund, we had no financial guidance on that. A finance director assists department heads with grant applications and award management. Grant revenues have been delayed for improper reporting and filings. Grant applications are not being pursued because of lack of professional and financial guidance, as well as having somebody there that can help walk department heads. So who knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars we've lost
That's definitely
due to not even being able to apply for these grants. All of these things could and should be prevented in the future. Over the past 2 years, our expensive audit situation required us to neglect important areas of financial management. We have chosen to not prioritize the money to address these issues in the future. As this list shows, we need to make improvements to our financial management as soon as possible. We are experiencing expensive negative consequences by choosing not to.
I have 2 questions.
So, hold on, I have a comment. So. I'm gonna read what I just wrote here. So we should look at all of our department heads, which we should probably do in a non-public session. Look at if they're doing their jobs correctly, fire them and maybe hire people that can do their jobs correctly. No, because in that whole statement you just said, they didn't do anything that they were supposed to do. They worked hard last year to maintain their budgets and to spend very frugally. We did not go over budget last year. And I think the process we have in place right now, it works for us because we are trying to catch up. So yes, to all your stuff there, accept the fact that these people didn't work hard all year to keep us where we were. So I apologize for her, to you, and to all of you department heads. Because you're out of line and you're wrong.
So I'm gonna make a statement. The other thing is,
Keep it respectful when you're.
I will.
Yeah.
I did not
Yeah.
say anything
That
about
was
you,
not.
and I do not feel like.
so I'm gonna make a statement is, first of all, it is ironic that you make a statement and read a statement, basically calling her, him, all these people, everybody sitting here incompetent. And the second part is, if you remember correctly, you voted yes to a lot of those things, so you're just as bad as everybody else. So don't sit up here and be self-righteous saying that you don't involved in it. So that is respectfully, I'm giving you my feedback. I'm not yelling at you. I didn't tell you you're rude. I'm basically saying that my feedback is. Okay, that sounds good.
I take just as much responsibility as anybody else. I stress that I understood that we chose these processes.
Mhm.
I don't think our department heads have to have degrees in finance. I don't think Scott did anything wrong. I don't think John did anything wrong. But these things did happen as a result of the processes that we are using.
Well, you're
And you need to look at your processes when you adopt them. And if you are seeing bad things happen, that is when you need to address it and recognize it and say, what can we do? You wanna know who I blame for all of this? Not a single employee. I
Not what you
blame
just implied.
It's
That's
this
not what
way,
you just implied.
choosing to address the situation.
So, Donna and John. We, during this discussion, we identified that there are some gaps in how our finances are being collected. Would you and could you put together a recommendation to form of how we make gaps? And I think you understand what some of my answers to the questions.
Yeah, I mean, the questions can be asked, I really think you need to rely on your administrator and your staff to put that stuff together. I can certainly work with them on that, but I don't know that I should do that independent of them. They know what they need, and they have a good idea anyways. I really would defer to your administrator. You've got a good administrator here, who's got a good idea. I think at least to make recommendations. I do understand ultimately it's the board's decision on whatever you do, however you proceed. At least to the extent that you make a recommendation to the public and the public gets the opportunity to vote on it, but.
So some of the things I was talking about is, having a second set of eyes on the processes that our clerk is doing. Reconciliations, finding grants, making sure that, we're complying and keeping up with our audits, those are the kinds of things that, we picked out in some areas where we are lacking. So, if you could work with the department heads and so on. I
I just think we
a
have
good
to-
way to move forward.
I agree, but my only concern is at $110 an hour, and I do think we are in financial science right now. We don't know what else is gonna come in for legal bills, and when I looked at the proposed budgets from the department heads. So If you look at their 2026 predicted budget, we come to 5,417,52. That doesn't include the 175,000 from the petition warrant article or the 306,000 that was encumbered. When we authorized 160,000 from the emergency services revolving fund, that brings us down to 5,257,000. That had us at just under 3,000 of our default. We just signed another 15,000 in legal bills today. If you look at and compare it to 2025 actual expenses, there would be a difference of 30,000. Again, we just approved another 15,000, so we're down to 15,000 between what we actually spent and what they're proposing spending right now. I agree with you wanna wait and see, and it's hard always to make projections, but I think the writing is on the wall right now that we need to do something before we find ourselves in a situation where we're freezing spending or all of a sudden taking drastic measures because we don't wanna violate municipal budget law. We have an opportunity to be proactive instead of reactive, and that's what I think we should do.
Yeah, if I may, my comment wasn't really just to wait and see. My comment was to find areas that you have discretionary spend. So there's certain things you have to spend money on. You've got to pay your electric bills, your utility bill. You've got to do certain things, but there are also going to be many things in your budget that you can find that you don't have to spend the money on them today. And I would put the brakes on those things. So I would start preparing by stopping certain spending right now. And then that gives you the opportunity to wait and see. So what that means by wait and see, it means if somebody has a truck in the budget, for example, a replacement vehicle, does it really have to be replaced in April? If the answer is no, then you don't replace it in April and you wait until you get into September, October, November, till you're towards the end of the year. And then you can look at your budget and see if indeed your projections are real. Your projections may indeed be real, and then it's like, we can't buy the truck because we've got to absorb it within the bottom line, or we can't buy whatever else is within your budget. But you may find out that we didn't expend money, or we had under expenditures somewhere else we weren't anticipating. Then we can go ahead and spend these monies because we know that we have them in hand. So it's a little different, but I do think it's a proactive approach to just not move along. It's to pick things out and to stop spending in certain areas where you can.
My concern though is when you look at the 2025 actual.
Mhm.
So that would indicate, I mean, we were in a default budget and we really pulled back. The department heads did do an excellent job of watching every penny. So to me, that would suggest when I look at that 5 million in 23, that was probably mostly all necessary spending. So I think it's gonna be very unlikely that in 2026, they're gonna be able to pull back below that. And when you look at what we're projecting to incur based on that in those legal bills, we're in trouble.
Yeah,
So
and you could be perfectly right, but it doesn't sound like you've gone through the exercise yet to do that. So, but I just wanted to point out that my comment is, if you're anticipating these problems now, my comment isn't just simply to wait and see. My comment is to take action now. And then in those areas that you take action, you can always address those later. So I think we're saying the same thing. I think what I'm trying to say to you is, I agree with you that you need to be proactive. It's a matter of how you do that, and I would probably start that way.
okay, thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions for Scott?
Thank you. Thank you.
Be sure.
Nice to meet you, Scott.
And
I'm just hanging
we move the church people up now. I wanted to keep it ESRF because it leads into the financial, so I wanted to put that right after, but I do feel bad. You never should have made that comment.
Yeah. Yes, let's please do that.
Okay, let's move them up. If you'd like to come up, Aaron.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys for seeing for just a few moments. I'll try to be courteous of your time. I have a lot. I'm Eric Hawkins, I'm the pastor of Fellowship Church. We are in Hooksett, New Hampshire. I said that because we moved up here from that church. I wanna first just start by letting you guys know, I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm not looking, I know for your church, and they get a little cautious. We don't want anything from you. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to preach to you. Trish, I think you can, vouch for us. Our church really lives to bless our community. We serve in our community a lot. We bring a lot of mission teams up to serve. And Allentown is within our sphere of influence. We have people that come to our church from here. We meet at the town hall's gymnasium. We've built amazing relationships with our Andre Guerin, our town administrator, and people within the public works, Ben. Serving with my wife is actually the chaplain with both the fire and police department in Hooksett, volunteers for that. We want to take burdens off of the town. As you guys are well aware, we hear you guys are in the same kind of crunch. And so if we can help, that's what we're here to do. In our town, we've from supplying things the town needs, where we've supplied air conditioners to town hall. They're part of it's not air conditioned, fans for the gymnasium where we meet at. But we've also come up, we've painted dugouts, we have painted the public works buildings, we've done work all throughout town. We actually last year had a team come up and built 2 huge dugouts for the town for the softball. And we do roadside cleanup here. This past week, we just went and helped pick up, we set a new record, we hauled 13 tires off from one area. So but we want to help. And so I've got teams coming up. I said, I'm not asking for anything from you guys. We actually want to just come and bless you. And we want to come and serve. I got a team specifically that comes up in August every year because they come to serve at the National Night Out event with the police department. But that team comes up specifically to do service projects. And if I know what you guys have and what might need to be done, we can help to make sure we have the teams that can do that. The more time I have, the easier it is for me to build people. But not only that, people within our own church can come help. If you have needs within the town of, like we've supported the LEAD program with the police department. We do a basketball camp BDS every year, and we give that money back into the community. We don't want to keep it. And we want to be able to help you guys with that also. So I just wanted to take a few moments to be able to stop in, to make the introductions and to let you guys know that we are here, not after anything other than just to be able to just help you guys in any way we can.
So I can vouch for the church and the impact that they've had in Hooksett. I do not have an affiliation with this church. I know many of you know I'm Christian, but this is not my church. But I have monthly at the minimum heard in our management team meetings in Hooksett the impact that these folks have had with pretty much every department at the town of Hooksett and the different projects that they've assisted with. So if our departments know of projects that they've got coming up, that maybe you're thinking you might do it sooner than later, if you can hold off until August. And, send your list to Scott, he will certainly do his best to meet those needs.
And something that's, like we're looking big time too, right? I'm not just looking for September, like we do stuff throughout the year. We do blessing baskets, we give Thanksgiving meals to families, and so we want to help incorporate Allentown. Here we provide a full meal and take home and cook for themselves. So it's not just like stuff that I want you to rush and try to find like this. It's like stuff, how can we truly help? And if it's just like, hey, we've got some parks that you guys just go clean the weeds out and you pick stuff up and you paint. We've gone down to the firing range for the police department and cut down trees and weeds and so it's stuff that truly, if they can help take a burden off of you, especially if it's maybe something that save you guys financially somewhere down the line. It's small, but it's ways that we'd love to help. And I said I just need to just visit and talk with you guys about it whenever so I'll leave you guys my cards. Yeah, and you can reach out anytime, and we'd love to try and especially today, maybe something for August, just so I can the team's asking, they're trying to build, they're coming out of Texas, and this is not Oklahoma, sorry, Texas is June. Anyway, so they're trying to build that team, and they're trying to figure out what they need. And if you've got construction, they want to show you people do construction. If it's painting, because not everybody can paint. I'm good at painting the floor, but they want to make sure we get the right people for that. So the sooner we can maybe discuss that.
Well, you're making list.
We would love to.
Fire Association, so too bad it wasn't September, because we do reach the beach up in Middleborough.
Okay.
And trying to find volunteers to do things around the town is limited, it's usually about the same handful of people, so that's amazing, thank you for bringing them to us, because I think it's an amazing. Yeah,
Yes, we would definitely want to hear about it.
And I can tell the department heads, you can reach out to the departments and host it, or to Leanne, who's the project coordinator and looks at, she'll know all of it. Like each of the departments know the impact that they have had.
that's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I don't leave my cards in. We got some, we're just gonna get some notebooks and flashlights. Anybody wants them, take them. We come by donating from our church and they're more than happy to let you guys have those.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I'll leave a handful of cards there for you guys. Perfect. You have one. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for yours.
It's no different. It looks it and just got a little bigger room to do it in.
Okay, and now we will go back to the emergency services revolving fund. As that I asked the board to consider, and I'm not necessarily looking for the board to make a decision on that tonight. I know that you guys didn't even know it was coming or see it until Thursday. But especially in light of the financial discussion you just had, as you heard me say, I think when we look at our 2025 actuals, I agree wholeheartedly with Scott. There may be outside the box things. I think most of our vehicles are on leases, though. I don't know that it would be easy for us to just not buy a vehicle. We don't have very many large expenditures that we could change. So the 200,000 in the revolving fund, that fund was set up, established, the voters voted for it, believing that it would be used to support emergency services. Budget, and if we did that, it would free up money in the general budget that we might not have to worry about going over budget.
I'm thinking.
I personally would like to hear what you've written in this proposal, just to kind of get us all up to speed.
Okay, so I'm gonna quickly defer because I know Scott wants to get out of here. I did speak with Scott this afternoon at about 3:30. I wanted to verify the balance in that fund after all the transfers, because I had originally put under that 553, but Scott did tell me today that it is 576 after the transfers, not 803. So I just want Scott to hear it so he can get the same thing, so I'm not speaking for him, but that is correct, that you verified that it's around 576.
Yeah, the only thing, looking just at the cash balance doesn't take into consideration is the interfund account. So there, at the end of March, there was an amount due to the general fund in the amount of 226,000. So that is, they refer to it as cash equivalent, but we actually transferred that, we covered that finally in April this month, had the treasurer transfer that. It just hadn't occurred on a timely basis, so you still have close to 600,000, whatever the number was I gave. It's not the 803, so I just wanted to make sure you guys understood that you had that interfund balance.
It's so difficult, again, as we talked about in the last, because even last meeting we authorized the 160, the balance was 404. And it's so every person I talk to, depending on the time, it's hard to get an account balance.
So that was the only piece I just.
Thank
you.
Thank you for your time.
All right,
Thanks, Scott.
Good night, Scott.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for holding up. So in relevance to that, so I did see the requests come out and I wanted to make sure that as we come through here and in meeting in the last time, and maybe I did misspeak about the 404, but I had sent a narrative out before that. When I sent the narrative out of what we were at, so it was not, it was 483 is where we were at. So that was a miscalculation, but it didn't mean that we weren't close. So I read through the proposal of the $200,000 and I think I'm gonna stress this very clearly to the board, right? Again, Beth and I are your department heads, right? I don't have an accounting degree, but I can tell you I'm pretty good with numbers. And I've been pretty close on all the predictions that I've done. And since we started this ambulance service, I've been pretty close. You can ask John today, because we went over the numbers and I was 20,000 off, 20,000 off, about 20,000 off on the predictions of where we'll be. So when we talk about these things, that's why I ask all of you, and I've always invited you. You can go to John and you can get the bank account numbers from a bank statement. But again, to Scott's point, is the behind the scenes stuff that's happening that he has done a really good job at with me is to know where we're at. I do get those reports every single day, Trish. I look at it, we have the same system where I just went, and it was a bonus for me because I can predict. You can actually go into that system, and when you print those reports, you can print it in a spreadsheet, and it gives you a forecast on the right column. So as a department head, my job is to pay attention to that. I don't have anybody else to help me. I look at it. So I am educated in how to run a budget. Right, so, but the failure in this whole thing is we all wanna make the decisions, right? We wanna make educated decisions out of the board. And when we go uninformed, we don't ask the right questions, you're gonna get inaccurate information. John knows that you know, because he's the town administrator. I get paid a certain dollar amount, so does Beth, Chad. They get certain dollar amounts to manage things, to pay attention to them. If you don't, you should be fired. Right? So when I read this proposal, it was very blind. And I say it was not an informed decision. And the recommendation to take the money out of there makes it so as we go along to the future, if we didn't go default for 2 years in a row, it would be something we could look at. But when I predict, when I look at the numbers, which I've done since this fund has been started, is to look where we're gonna go. The goal was to use it to do capital expenditure, but we can't predict what the voters. And they voted default. The RSA that's written is written specifically for almost situations like this, when we have defaults. So we can actually make sure the fund and the service keeps running. It's not to arbitrarily take money out and screw up the system that you put in place. I am paid to monitor that. When you look at predictions of what I've done, I've said it before in the past, but I haven't gotten a phone call from Kathleen or anybody else in regards to, hey, can I sit down, can you explain to me what this is and how this works? Nothing, it's just arbitrary things put out there saying we can spend this money. So if you come to my proposal, if you had a chance to read it, I did update it this afternoon. And I brought it here for John because he couldn't get it out in time. But if we look at this fund long term, we don't go and pass the budget next year. And we do go to default again. There is a prediction that that number keeps going down until her point, which is you will go default. So the job of the department head is to look at what we can do in that fund and manage it. By taking an additional $200,000 out of that fund. Yes, when Pembroke separated, we got a large chunk of money. And you can ask Laura what I do with finances. Preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. So that money comes in there and sits there so we can keep the service going. If we arbitrarily upset the system that was put in place, we now are going to fall back to $240,000. That sounds like a lot of money, right? If you read this proposal, we are going to spend $302,000 out of this fund this year. Way more than we should have spent. Because we should be hopefully trying to hold on to this, so in 7 years when the ambulance comes, the taxpayers aren't eating it. That's what the whole intent was, on top of making sure the ambulance stays afloat. So if you look at the math and you add 200,000, we're at 600,000 right now, 576. We're gonna take 502,000 out of it. Yeah, we're gonna gain a balance of about 168,000 for the year, because in that thing, you'll see I put our income that we received for the first quarter. That's 56,000. Let's multiply that times 4 quarters, we're at about 225. Bonus if we get more. But if we don't, and we get less, now we're putting ourselves in a bind, just like we were just talking about with the budget. Is we are gonna shoot ourselves in the foot. I will be the fire chief, but I still care about the success. And if John or anybody else is the chief, I care about the success of the department and the citizens, because I've been here forever. So to recommend arbitrarily that we take that money out to lower the budget, which we can't take money out to lower our budget, so we can spend it in other places because we want it. And I just have a sense that it's for a finance director, but I'm only speculating, is the fact that you're gonna rob Peter to pay Paul. So we always talk about buying down the tax rate and buying down this and that. We're gonna take $200,000 to buy down the fire department budget just for it to go back up next year. So it doesn't make financial sense for us to jeopardize our future as an ambulance service. This isn't paving a road. This is real people riding the ambulance. So when you call 911, somebody shows up that's not coming from 2 towns away. when you need it. So if you read through the proposal, and if you have any questions, you can ask questions, but if we keep going the way that we're going, at the end of 2027, we're gonna have $145,000. If we go default next year and we have to take 300,000 out, the math doesn't add up. We'll take in the revenue and we might stay afloat, but if we don't stay smart with this fund and we just arbitrarily spend out of it, we're gonna lose, we're gonna lay people off because we're gonna be done with an ambulance service. So I strongly advise you guys from now and or the future, from trying to rob here to pay Paul with this account. So that's my piece on it, so.
Thank you, I appreciate it. To be honest with you, I didn't see your letter until today.
I sent out
I did not have time over the weekend to look at any of this stuff. So, you know, I do personally do need a little more time, and I'm glad that you gave a response. And I would have looked for it anyway, so, you know, and yes, I will go through it, and if I have questions on
I appreciate it, and I think that we should be doing that ahead of time. Not throwing things on the agenda for the public to see that we have all this stuff without coming to the department head and saying, hey, where are we at? I think that for us, that we're gonna talk about having structure and being professional and accounting for this. The select board should also be doing the same thing, to come to Beth or me or Chad and say, where are we at, so we can make an educated decision, instead of just arbitrarily throwing out there, because what do you think you just did to the morale of my members when you do that, right? They already know we're in a default budget. They're probably not gonna get raises, and then we're just gonna take money out of a fund that's gonna maybe jeopardize the security of where we're going. What do you think they're gonna do? I'm out of here. So we talk about keeping good employees and, working the process. Trust your department heads. If they mess up, you correct them, but they don't have a job. I have been pretty good with all of my stuff, and the predictions and the numbers that have gone through the years. And I am more than willing to help out the individual who takes over this position and help them forecast too, because even though it's said that they don't, I forecast. I'm looking years out. I think Beth is looking years out. I think Chad is looking years out. The problem is the citizens have to vote to support it. And when they don't, I put in underspend by $23,000. To Scott's point, discretionary spending. I know where I can cut back. I might be able to cut back more. Whoever takes that position might be able to. I know Beth has already done it. We hired somebody for the highway, but she hasn't hired anybody for the police department because she's being smart to make sure that we have the money. So we need to make sure that we're being responsible, and that's working with you guys, not being blindsided. I said when I took this job, I will never blindside you, right? I did once, and I apologize for it, but we are still, me personally, I'm still getting blindsided with things that I have to spend 5 hours on a Saturday playing defense, rather than just having a conversation ahead of time to make sure we're all on the same page. I just think it's the wrong mentality. When I took over as the fire chief, we did have a board there. I know all the decisions weren't liked that were made, but the best part about that board is we sat down together and I could come to them and they would come sit in the office and I could explain the situations. They could disagree with me respectfully and I'd be okay with it because I wasn't blindsided. But I feel like over the past 2 years or so, it's a fight for everything. And I don't think that is gonna be productive for the taxpayers. It's not gonna be productive for you guys. It's gonna cause a lot of stress. And these guys here, myself included, as the future goes on. So before we make decisions of this catastrophic nature, you should be educated ahead of time, well ahead of time, before we come.
So I agree, and I do look at everybody's stuff when it comes through. I go to you, I've talked to you about your budget, obviously, but I talked to Beth this week, I talked to John this week, I asked questions, I formed my opinions. I am ready to vote on this, I will let everybody else have their discussion, but I just wanna let you know and everyone else know that I do get my homework, and I do spend the time to sit down and talk to you guys and figure out what your needs are.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, we're in a budget crunch. We only have so many places We can take money from so many places, we can decrease expenses. Everything, as I've said before, has a dollar cost and an opportunity cost. As soon as we spend money on something, it means something else is gonna go unfunded. This fund was created and established and approved by the voters to support the operations of the fire department. That's what they were told when they voted for it. So the use would be entirely appropriate. We could also establish a capital reserve account that would fund future years. As the finance director just told us, we're anticipating having a large fund balance because we're behind on our audits. We don't exactly know what that is. So the voters are much more likely to fund a capital reserve account with $0 impact if we went to them and said we need 200,000 because we determined due to our CIP that we're gonna have to fund a replacement fire truck. There's ways to prepare for this and be responsible. Right now, to me, I would use this money. I don't, John, do you have any ideas about the default budget, the strategy you're planning on using? Would you use a revolving fund this way or?
I have few buckets to choose from. I think we talked about this before. You have your operating or default budget, you have capital reserve funds, you have escrow funds, and you have revolving fund. All of them are considered as possible funding vehicles. It's dependent upon how you want to use them.
It seems for our capital reserve accounts, because they have that strict intended focus, they can only be used on those items, like the vehicles or the buildings.
Revolving funds are the same way, escrow funds are the same.
Well, the revolving fund encompasses the whole operations of the whole department, so if we put the expenses to that, then we would have that money to use in the regular budget. My point is, it's much harder for us right now. I believe the paving predictions include all of the money in that capital reserve account. I don't know what the other departments are planning for their capital reserve accounts. I know they're severely depleted right now, though, and hopefully we'll be able to fund them if we have a healthy fund balance at the end of the year. But there are plenty of measures we can take. My concern is right now, this money is needed. It does us no good to let it sit for a rainy day. It's raining. Today's the rainy day.
The revolving fund was specifically made for the fire department services.
That's what I'm asking it.
Right, so you're wanting to put it for the same thing.
For fire department, I wanna actually, the fire department services that the fund was created to support when the voters, you can read the warrant article, when the voters checked it, so it would support the operations of the fire, and that's what I'm asking we do.
But that's what it does.
So,
No,
Scott,
another
Am I wrong?
it does, but when you're looking at it, like Scott just did mention, discretionary spending, right? There are several lines in the budget right now, without even thinking about upsetting the apple cart, where you could go into discretionary spending. And nobody wants to say it, but there's departments that will have to reduce, and we've already talked about it. She's already done it to quite an extent, right? I don't think there's other areas. I do think there's other areas before you touch that fund, and it's not just extra just sitting there for a rainy day. It's not. It is a planned fund for exactly what I just said. So everything I just said, and it's like nobody's listening, that's what that's there for. That is for the, oh my God, the ambulance is gonna go under. We have a fund to make it keep going.
Some of us are listening.
So the point of the matter is there's many other areas that we could look at in the budget, and I talked to John about it, but it's not my place to say, where discretionary spending could be down. There is some, John, we've been talking about on a regular basis of things we're not gonna do this year on top of the 23,000, knowing that we have lawyer fees that we'll not be able to do. You know, hose testing is a big thing. It's a huge liability. We can take that risk and roll the dice for the year that we don't do hose testing. Right? Some of those things have to
That's
happen.
Whatever risk you wanna take, like if we assign these funds, it has no impact. Your department keeps operating, all the departments keep operating. But we have time to prepare.
And you
after
talk-
it.
No, but if you talk about actuals, right? When you talk about actuals, you mentioned actuals many times, right? So the actuals last year, as the budget went along, are because we forecasted And those actuals actually could be a little bit lower on some things if we're smart and we can needle those things down for the year, but that's what you pay us for. So when you talk about these numbers and the plans for the predictions are there, every department head, including Chad and Beth, are responsible for underspending and not coming to meetings and asking for things, knowing where they are. We've all done it. But some of those discretionary spending things, that department head needs to use their brain saying, is this a smart decision in a default budget? That's what I do. That's what she does. So I want to make sure that you guys just know that before you make the decision. And I'm gonna sound like a broken record. Kathleen is stuck on the revolving fund. Right? Wants the money out of that. I think there's other reasons, but hold on, I'm not done. Basically, I think that it's a bad decision. And why do we keep looking at that fund rather than looking within the budget and being able to adjust certain things? We did it last year by not doing trash. And oh my God, I know I've heard that 4,000 times in 2 years, but basically it was needed and we made it through. We can do the same thing this year.
So can I suggest that we table this for this meeting so that people can do more thought on it?
Yeah, I am absolutely fine with that. I just wanted to make.
Can I ask a question first?
Yes.
If we had voted to take the $200,000 out as your question. If something were to happen where we needed that $200,000 back. How does that work?
A prime example was $48,000 for the tower truck, right? We don't foresee those things. So let's say we take it out and we get down to $100,000 and a pump explodes in the fire truck. That's another $40,000 that would now, we didn't have the funds, where do we find it in the budget?
Right.
Either that or the truck puts out a service.
Yeah, New Hampshire RSA actually has an emergency clause. So if a fire truck was in an accident, legit emergency, it has to be something unforeseen, like our legal expenses would not qualify. The BOS can declare it emergency spending, and then you are actually allowed to exceed your budget. But it has to be declared emergency spending and it has to meet the qualifications of that RSA. It has to legitimately be an emergency.
Why would you let ourselves get there?
But do you have to pay that later on in the future?
I believe it comes out of your general fund, your fund balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But why, why put ourselves?
You're just spending into your savings.
Okay.
But why,
Basically what you did in 2024.
When we overspend the
but
budget.
why put ourselves in that, to Chris's point? If you had the ability to not put yourself in that position, why would you do it? When you know you can do discretionary spending within the budget and we can try to get it down. When the end of the year comes, instead of taking $200,000 now, what if we get to October and we've done a really good job like last year and we only need 50,000? Now you've just taken that money away, never coming back, and basically defuncting the ambulance service where you can,
So
it's too soon.
go to this measure.
I would recommend doing the information here, but, and I don't mean this to sound bad, Trish, but we have had this discussion. I can recite this in my sleep. And I've talked to the board and you guys have been here for 2 years. You understand what's in it, right? So it's not a hard, in my mind, I don't think it's a hard decision to look within first and wait till the end of the year and decide when we get close, if you need some funds from there, that you can do that. But just to arbitrarily take out that large sum of money, which could hurt us long term, it makes absolutely no sense. So.
We've already approved to table the item, so we'll move on. Is John not coming? Yeah, so we'll take him off. And I don't see Tim Silver now. He had requested that we discuss the town website, so we'll skip that then. The agenda changes discussion, the Board of Selectmen.
So I put this on here, I feel. We're talking about getting things last minute, some of us don't get a chance to read all the material. And I feel like when we normally, the way we do things, we get the information on a Thursday, we have time to look at the paperwork and then we have a discussion. With this, I don't feel like I had the time and I wanted to bring it up as an agenda item just to get my thoughts on it and what I think about it. So I would like to make a motion and then I would like to have a discussion on it to see what everybody else's ideas and what they think are. Maybe that. So I will make a motion regarding the newly updated agenda format to retain the updated consent calendar and disregard all other changes. And I'm gonna reference of rules of procedure, section 8.5.3. The presiding officer chair of the select board has no regular administrative or executive duties. Additionally, section 8.6.4, number 3, by majority vote, the select board may overrule any procedural decision of the presiding officer. So I would need a second. I'll second for this, and then I would like to hear discussion on it to see what people think.
I don't see how this format changes your time to nothing of that change. We always got the information on a Thursday, you're still getting it on a Thursday.
I mean, your changes,
What, I don't understand what changes you're talking.
the changes to the whole agenda.
You should make prior to the last meeting.
Because I have
the
the,
format.
because I have the department reports first.
It was just a whole different agenda,
No,
like, it was,
it's-
yes, you added stuff in there that wasn't in there. The committee reports we did not have.
Yeah, you don't like having the committee reports, you don't wanna.
I don't think that is necessary, I think that when the department heads have their agenda items, they bring it all forward. And I don't really think it's necessary to have them come up twice and then wait till the end of the meeting or wherever they are on the regular agenda to discuss it.
So you don't wanna be informed before you make
I
decisions.
absolutely wanna be informed, I just don't feel that that's a necessary step, and that's okay if I feel that.
It absolutely is, but the intention there, again, as I've stated in the past, was to get as much information ahead of time, and typically, most of the time, it will be Peter DeSantis and Mike Fasenelli reporting. There are times that members of boards or committees are not on the regular agenda, and they may just wanna have a standing place where they could come in. It makes it easier for them to know they have a spot to come before us, for us to plan and know that they're coming, for us to get the information ahead of time. I just don't see how that impedes your
It
ability
doesn't
on this
impede me,
board.
I don't feel it's necessary.
Well, I disagree, and in fact, I was gonna say under other business tonight, I was gonna report on what I heard and discussed at the planning board meeting. Because essentially as ex officios to the boards, part of that role is to come back and report that back to the board as a whole. So I was gonna bring that up under other business to discuss what, to just highlight what was discussed. But also to ask that we keep this, because I do think that's a great place for, in the future, then I could say, you know, after the planning board meeting, I could just be notifying John that I want to be included in the agenda to make, you know, whatever few comments.
That's what I used to do when I was chair, I used to report periodically and just say, put me on the agenda, I don't know how that's different.
So, I mean, but it's a place for it to happen in the agenda, it's for, it's.
I'm not sure why having it separated out is
But
an
it-
issue.
No, I just don't think it's a necessary step, because if something needs to be discussed.
Is it making this meeting run longer? Are people having a hard time with the boards and committees having a? Yeah,
Are example to of that, because.
yes, but I don't think it was because of this section.
No, I don't think that.
I'm saying no.
I also think that us getting the information on Thursday is sufficient time. I work. Sometimes, you know, full-time hours, not always, but then my weekends are also tied up. I have a personal situation that requires my almost 24/7 time on the weekend. I cannot. Unfortunately, you know, when I took this role, it wasn't happening, but it is happening, it is a situation I can't
I would
walk
agree.
away from, so a Thursday to Monday notification of our agenda is quite a amount of time. When I do wanna do my due diligence and do the research, you know,
What if we had the cutoff date moved to Monday? We'll have to wait till after her motion's off the table, but we could make a motion to move that. So the Monday before the meeting would be the cutoff date, and that way we have a full week, including a weekend, 5 business days to review the material and prepare appropriate responses.
Could I hear your thoughts? On that,
Yeah.
John, from your perspective?
Well, to get the agenda together with all the documents uploaded online to you takes me close to a day now. So you just be moving that day to a Monday.
Would Tuesday be better? Cause.
Mondays are very
Yeah,
tough
yeah,
to
yeah.
come into to
Yeah.
have to do this every other week.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Midweek?
Tuesday.
I mean, I would go no earlier than Wednesday. You've got 5 days.
So anything that shows up after Wednesday doesn't make the cut.
Correct. Right now, anything showing up after Thursday is not making the cut, and I've been holding that line. For people.
Alright, so what else is it about the agenda that you don't like? It's just the department and committee reports?
Also, we have, a citizen's comment at the beginning of our meetings. I don't find it necessary to have a citizen comment between every agenda item. I feel like that is going to make our meetings very, very long. And I mean, maybe we switch it to, we'll have citizens' comments at the beginning and then at the end, and that way they can express themselves. And maybe we could give them, advice on, putting it on the agenda for next week. I just think between every agenda item, it might just be a little
Well, like to,
unneeded.
there were none, yep, and then in the past, we have. So even though it wasn't on the agenda, Scott has always let people, our department heads have always chimed in when there was something being discussed. So all I did was put it on paper, but that's the way we've always operated, just wanna bring that to your attention, so that's been happening all along.
Well, if it wasn't supposed to be, then we need to tighten it up a little bit and not do it, and then have specific spots. I did look it up. I did look at other towns, and some have them at the beginning and at the end. Some just have it at the beginning, some just have it at the end. I just personally don't think it's necessary between every agenda item. I feel given enough time at the beginning, and then, if needed at the end, that's my thoughts.
I think by allowing it, it gives you control, like if you've got 20 people that are gonna stand up there and say the same thing, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, you can stop
If
them.
it's not there, you can stop them, but if you say, we allow people to come and speak for 2 minutes. So 20 people wanna talk, you have to let them because that's what you said.
No,
You remove
that
it,
is not true at all. When it gets, that's the point of the chairman, so I can ask people to speak. And if it starts getting repetitive, if someone makes a comment and someone gets up and starts saying the same thing, I absolutely do have the authority to say, thank you, we've already heard that. And move along, yeah.
People that say.
Yeah, but there
Yes,
is
something
something,
new
it
that
says here, you have,
contribute something
I should be
new.
able to speak for 2 minutes,
Yeah.
times 20 people.
I don't think that we're in danger, that didn't happen last week, and I've got a lot of feedback from the public, I just wanna let you know, who are very much in favor and very much like that they are allowed to state their opinion in the meeting. I'm not a fan of censoring or trying to quiet anybody, and I don't
Right.
think that it has impeded, it did not impede our meeting last week, it has not impeded our meeting this week whatsoever.
We didn't.
I do not want to impede on anybody speaking either. I don't think it's right. I think our community members need time to speak. I just don't think it's necessary between every agenda item. And those are my thoughts.
Yeah, my thought is that it does help us to, it helps to inform the board of what the citizens are desiring. Of course, that's a limited amount of citizens who might make the effort to come out. Now, if we are proactively doing as we have it, and complete agenda and all documents out there for people to see, the appropriate ones. They do have time to review those things and see that before coming in and could then make their comment at the beginning of the meeting. So that we are informed before we're having our discussion, yes, so.
But they don't, like tonight, wouldn't know if they looked, they don't necessarily know what the town website discussion is gonna be entailed. They don't know what these agenda changes discussion was gonna entail, there was no documentation put forth.
But if they needed that, they could reach out to any one of us and they could ask a question, they could look at the meeting online, we have it up online, there's many other ways for them to do it.
There's actually a citizen who was asked to make a comment right now, Peter
I would
just.
like to add this and make a comment. I strongly disagree with
Uh-huh.
Laura. I think it's very important if we want to engage the community. They're voting on these things, that there affects their budgets, their home budgets and everything. I don't see why the chair can't allow a comment or two from somebody or raise of hands for and again. I think it's important, and I was actually very encouraged by the change the chair made on that. So that's just my citizen comment on that.
I have also heard it from a variety of people that they were encouraged to see that was an option.
We just, like Kathy, we never know where the discussion is going, and there's that information just. People aren't using the website to get information. I think, and discussion changes as we're at the meeting.
And honestly, if it brings more people to a meeting, I'm all for it. I hope it does.
My citizen comment on that.
Well, I don't see any of the changes that I've made have a negative or time consuming impact. I think we're still adjusting well, and I think it's going good, but. If you guys wanna put it to a vote, all in favor? Laura,
Krishna. I'd like to keep trying this, I think 2 weeks of trying it is not sufficient.
yeah,
I'm on the fence, I understand what Peter's saying, but I also. Think it could cause frustration if we've got 20-25 people.
but that can be handled in the morning.
Yeah, I think we could
very
very
easily.
include in that comment that people can make comments.
Just like-
Would be regularly advised.
Just like last week, there was somebody who spoke who did go on, and I right away said, this is intended for 1 or 2 minutes. And he apologized, and I said, that's okay, and the next comments after that were indeed, it's like a second. They said one thing, and then I think it went very well. We have another public comment.
Thank you. I think we should table it. That'll give you a chance to see if it works or not.
Yeah, we could do that as well.
Table it to a certain date.
If the motion's already made, can you do that?
And you can withdraw your motion, and the second can withdraw if you change it, if you choose to change it to a date. Otherwise, you have to keep going.
That's fine. What is the wording?
I withdraw my motion.
I withdraw my motion.
Second,
Second,
you withdraw your motion
Yes.
as well, okay.
That's,
second.
Now you want to table it?
Table it. Make a motion to table it, but for further.
For 2 more meetings,
For 2 more meetings.
So not the next meeting, the meeting after.
correct,
Are you doing the second?
I'll second
and the next item, all in favor?
it. Yeah, I can.
Laura?
Press I.
Kathleen, next up on the agenda is Eric Lambert with his social media comments.
Yes, that will be brought up in at May 18th.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, everybody.
I'd like to take a moment, and I'm speaking right now as a citizen and not a financial. So, Donna Develop came in and actually made a very valid point, and I wanted to speak to that because I was actually gonna do the same. So. In the words of my job and your jobs as leaders of the town. The word leadership means influence. It can be good and it can be bad. So I will echo her comments that. We all know that Kathleen does a lot of posting online and gives her opinions of what she should think, of what she thinks about the other towns should be. And she's entitled to under the First Amendment rights. Right? If the word we comes out, now she's representing the board. If the word I is out there, then she's speaking for herself, because she cannot speak as a board member representing others. I experienced that last year with the trash thing, where people were threatening things because they were mad. And there was quite an extensive process. So I have a question. Yes, she did. So I have a question, and this is a personal question for you, Kathy. In a Facebook post that you put online after last week's meeting, it says the 2026 GOS is the same as it was in 2020. We don't have a prayer. I was really hopeful that this year would be different. Can you explain that to me, what that means?
No,
So basic interpretations under my interpretation is that there is no faith in this board. I know that the trash open happened last year. I had to live it because of Laura's decision. And the influence that you do online affects other people to act in certain ways. My interpretation of this is that you don't think that these 4 people are capable of making a decision if it doesn't align with yours. So I would think that they probably need an apology for the way that this is depicted, because if I'm wrong, then tell me I'm wrong, but it basically says there is no faith in this board. We don't have a prayer. I think that you're a leader of the community. You are somebody that a lot of people follow. So when you put these things out there like that, it just doesn't affect her, and it doesn't affect her, it doesn't affect Chris, because he's new to this board. He's been here for 3 meetings, and you're saying that you have zero faith in him almost. It affects me. It affects her family. It affects his family. So I'm kindly asking you that you stop representing the town of Allenstown, because let's call it what it is, even though you're speaking individually. You, as a town official, have a lot of influence. You did it with the trash, and I think you did a good job of getting people to vote that they wanted. The board was going to do that in regards to getting the transfer station back open, but I think that got lost in the shuffle of all the anger that happened. So I'm asking you as a taxpayer to please stop posting stuff like this. You're supposed to be the professional with these guys and sitting at this meeting and hashing it out respectfully, instead of undermining everybody online. And I said the same thing about the other post when it comes to the finance director's, that has no guidance. I've watched this man guide this town. I've watched him guide to be in a better spot tremendously, because we all know where we were. So to sit there online and make that reference that we're in chaos is something we shouldn't do to each other. Diane spends a lot of time for this town doing policies and everything else. Trish has done a bunch in the past, has worked for the town. So have you, Kathleen. So we all know the influence. And in the tough times that we're in right now, I think the right thing to do is, instead of sowing discord online, is to sit here in a workshop that your husband actually recommended together and get to this default budget. Because I can tell you, and he can tell me if I'm lying, I know how many people watch that page. And the influence you're having right now on people leaving this town because they think we're in chaos is in effect. I talked to another employee of another department at my retirement center who said they're in a process in another town next door because they fear the chaos precipitated by stuff like this. So if you want the town to work and you want us to get to this, stop this. Because you're only hurting everybody else. I know that you get upset because sometimes the votes don't go your way, but that's democracy. It's called being constructive instead of attacking people online after we leave the meeting. I'm leaving this town, not because I didn't want to. I wanted to help the town, but I took so much bashing last year online that I had to get an attorney. My wife and Diane and Scott took bashing last year because you were upset because of the trash vote. When realistically, at the end of that statement, somebody asked and said, we're getting rid of trash, and Diane, I actually read the minutes, says that we are not getting rid of this permanently. We have to take a step back and we have to reevaluate, so we could potentially open up the transfer station to trash again. But right now, our default budget forecasting, they made a decision. And you might have thought that we were the devil because you guys made the vote. It doesn't help anybody by doing these things. So I'm asking you, and I'm asking this board to work together and to stop the minutia crap that's online all the time, because we all see it and we all talk about it. And it is going to detrimentally affect the morale of this town. So thank you for your time.
Do we have citizens' comments right now?
You sure did.
So my citizen comment is, Kathleen, tonight I've observed you when people have been talking and you have not been looking at the speaker. You sit there and stare into space. That is, please stop. I've got it on video. It is disrespectful.
Minutes of a comment, not a personal attack at somebody. That is disrespectful.
You are being disrespectful to the speakers. They've all watched the speakers tonight and you stare into space. Shame on you, Kathleen.
Pull up the next item. Fire chief.
Hold on. I want to add to what Eric was saying. I usually let this stuff roll off my back. But when I read, and I'll just read the end of it, they say the best way to predict the future is to look at the past. And if this is the case, it's going to be 2 long years fraught with uneducated and dangerous decision-making based on false narratives. You're calling me uneducated?
I'm calling the whole board uneducated, as I did tonight in the meeting. We just had a long talk with the finance director. You'll see my statement that I'm asking to be published in the meeting minutes. It says we're a 2 year
Uneducated.
Yes, no financial education.
Should we bring it up?
We did not get any financial.
Let's put them out on the table and see who's educated and who's not.
When
You can't call us uneducated.
We were
This is unacceptable. I'm not taking this.
We were uneducated. We had no financial guidance when we chose to close the trash. We had no financial guidance at all.
You did.
Don't call me uneducated. Do not call me uneducated.
What
If you need uninformed, that's a different thing. Uneducated means I walked out of school in what, 5th grade? I didn't, Kathleen.
You're welcome to your own opinion, Diana, of what the word means. I'm explaining to you how I meant it. We're uneducated on the financial implications of our decisions, and we have been.
No.
For the past 2 years, as a board member, I have never received financial guidance from a finance director because we haven't had one.
Believe it or not.
I feel that I am making uneducated decisions, and that does lead to bad decisions. I stand by that.
And it was educated because Chad put out the information that if we wanted to default, we might have to cut the trash and even did a presentation. So I beg to differ that you were uneducated. He put out the numbers and the proposal with 5 different things on it. So to say that we were uneducated, all of the department heads, I think that you were speaking to exactly what I just brought up. So I apologize.
Chris.
May I
Yes.
say, this is hard for me because when I got this position, I took myself off the community pages. I didn't know where those posts were coming from. But I was being approached by people outside when I was either Dunkin' or Sully's or at Ace Hardware, Avishon, I still call it Avishon. And they were coming up to me and saying, what is going on? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And people, as Donna had mentioned, people are saying that the board is being looked at as being stupid, incompetent. But for me, it actually started the night I was elected. Because somebody came up to me to congratulate me for getting the position and followed that up with, I just overheard somebody say that the powers that be are unhappy with you winning. That hurts a lot. Because to me, right off the bat, people are expecting me to fail in this position. That's not why I ran for this. You know, I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of emotional, but I love this community. I've been here almost my entire life. I consider Allenstown my home. That's why I ran for this. And to hear people saying things like this without giving me a chance, quite frankly, that freaking sucks. And I don't like it at all. I don't like being disrespected like that. I didn't know where the comments were coming from. I didn't care where they were coming from. I just cared that they were out there. Somebody had told me about a really nasty message on there from somebody who lived in my co-op. Not only were they attacking me, they were attacking my parents. for some things that had happened in our cooperative. I had talked to you about that. And it just, right from the start, it just struck me to the core that certain people were not giving me a chance to prove what I'm capable of doing in this town. I'm not gonna agree with you guys all the time. You can't expect me to. But I also don't wanna be kicked out of the sandbox if I don't agree with you. That's going on enough in Washington. I mean, every time we turn around, we're being seen that somebody got fired because they didn't agree with the commander in chief. I refuse to use the word president. But I want people to understand that things that get posted on Facebook, you're only getting one side of the story.
Yep.
You need to come to these meetings, you need to watch online, you need to hear everything that's going on and be educated in what is actually happening. You can believe what you want, but just do your due diligence and come to the meetings, watch the online, get the other side. That's all I have to say. I'm sorry, I got emotional.
Just to add on to that, at the end, I would also implore people online or citizens to come talk to our department heads. Our department heads know their departments, and it's a great wealth of knowledge to come and talk to these people. So if you're not sure, we all have emails, we all have telephone numbers. If you have questions, John's always available. Reach out, try to find out the information. I wanna add something, and I would just like you to pass these down. This is our rules of procedure. I've highlighted a few things in here, it just touches on this Facebook stuff. And I have one for you, John, too, if you.
Oh, all the way to John?
Yes, please.
You have one more?
I didn't have enough.
I
Sorry, here's more.
Okay, all right, so.
So I have highlighted some stuff, and I just wanted to just touch on them for a minute, and it has to do with the way we are, how we present ourselves. It's more of the red, it's supposed to be pink, but it turned out red. And it's gotta go down to the like meeting conduct part. One of them says, be respectful of different opinions and treat others with dignity and respect. Be fair and open-minded. A big one I think we're all guilty of is no board member shall be interrupted while speaking. That is a work in progress, we all try. And demonstrate characteristics of honesty, integrity, and positive role model leadership. For me personally, the Facebook thing, I understand we all have a right to speak. We all do it in our time. But we are sitting here to make decisions. We aren't all uninformed. We are all not uneducated. We all, including myself, take the time to talk, to read what I'm given, to go talk to department heads. And it really hurts and is very stressful, and it's not good for people's mental health. And for you to do that all the time, it hurts. And it really, the one comment I get from people is the board is so split. I don't want to be split. I want to be able to come in here as people and talk about things and not always feel like I'm being so judged. I feel like you judge me on a daily basis about what I'm not doing or what I don't know, and it's not fair. I ran for the same reasons he did. I watched him do his budget things. I'm involved in the community all over the place. I wanted to come to try to make some kind of difference. So I would ask as well that you please stop talking about us in general. Yes, you don't use our names, but you use the BOS. You have no faith in us, and I'm really hoping that that can change and that you could please stop posting that stuff.
Anybody else?
The only comment I'll make is a couple comments. Unfortunately, we are public figures, we are gonna get backlash from the public. But I do believe that we do need to be respectful of one another and just be careful in the words that we choose to use. I think I knew what you were intending to say in your Facebook comments, but it was a bit harsh. I'll admit, and I'll agree. And, you know, had you said that in a different way, it could have come across as more educating the public, which I think is what you're trying to do. I know that you have a passion for that. You know, because we do need to educate the public that we are not getting all of the information that we could benefit from. Even when we make an effort to go and speak to the different people, and a lot of that does have to do with the fact that we don't have a finance director who is going to our boards and committee meetings and helping us through that process. So, you know. I know that's where Kathleen intended to come from.
Thank you, I'm
But
glad you
sort of
understood
glad
that.
that the words.
Yes, I do understand how it would be interpreted that way, but I was including the whole board myself as well. And the posts were under a recording of the meeting, so it wasn't, I didn't go out and make my own post. There were people there posting questions, as a matter of fact, quite a few derogatory posts before I replied. So my intention was not to put you guys down individually, but I strongly disagreed with the decision. And as an elected official, I do choose to use social media to speak to the people that I represent, to explain to them why I'm making the decisions that I'm making, why I'm voting the way that I am voting. So if they disagree, they can ask me questions about it, or they could choose to vote me out next time around. But I will continue to keep using social media, and if either one, any one of you want to, that's up to you. If you don't want to, that's up to you.
No, because as soon as the third person kicks in, we created an unapproved, illegal meeting. We can't. I never will. So if you speak and then 2, 3, comments later, Laura says something and 2, 3 comments later, Trish chimes in, we now have an illegal meeting. So somebody has to stay out of it, I stay out.
I don't believe that's true.
Oh,
But
I just, but we could debate that.
And
And just one last thing, you said other people had put comments, this is what started the whole thing right here. The morning after,
no, there were multiple comments before that. I posted
Tim
that.
Silvernail
There's
in
two.
said, I guess we'll.
So things are not gonna change, or are they gonna change? That's what I'm asking. So you're just gonna keep doing the same thing and just hope that we interpret it the right way? Rather than just coming here and solving the problem as a board, you're just gonna keep doing that?
I will take Trisha's advice and try to be more careful on my wording. I'm glad that Trisha understood what I was saying and how I meant. Yes, because it did not mean it to be as harsh or the way that you guys took it, but I will continue to use.
We can't interpret it any other way.
I appreciate the fact that you try to keep everything out there for the people, but like Trish said, just the wording, I think, is what sets the kick off
Yes.
the hornet's nest.
Yes, I get that, but it really was about the way we've been handling our finances. My point is that we all are, I feel uneducated. I feel like I have not had the guidance or direction of a finance director since I first sat on this board, and I realized how pivotal it would be. And as my statement made earlier shows, I really think we have seen a lot of financial repercussions because we have chosen not to have that guidance and direction.
I wanna add one more comment, I'm sorry. You know, a few people have made the comment that we need to come in here and be unified, but the thing is. We don't need to, we are individuals on this board, we do come with our own opinions. And, that. We're never gonna all 100% agree.
Sure.
Every topic. So, it's incorrect to inform the public that we as a board should come together with this unified,
No,
just,
my intent was to come here and be constructive,
intention. Now,
not
as
to
a board,
disagree.
when we vote, whatever the final vote is a representation of the board.
And I can agree with you.
Input and our opinions do not have to match.
No, and that's what my whole point is, like, to come here and do that, right? You're on the board, the democracy is here right now. To Chris's point, you're not gonna agree, and you might not make the same vote with each other, but you're here together. talking about it. We are not launching shots across the bow on social media. You wait till you come back to the meeting and you hash it out at that point, whether you agree or disagree. But instead, we sabotage each other by going on social media to predict what the citizens will do. And that word leadership and influence. The trash was last year. People were threatening to throw trash on my lawn because of what people said on Facebook. They put my house numbers out there. I had somebody actually come up to me and said, burn them at the stake,
Mhm.
like, because of a post. You didn't make that post. No, you made the post about trash.
I'm happy about
You
the
made the
trash.
post about trash, and that's what it stemmed
Like I
from.
said before about, you think we're all uneducated. It's funny, because in any of those posts, you did not say you said us.
I included myself.
No,
in
you
the
didn't.
report.
No, you didn't.
I said.
You showed me that
You
example
didn't.
last time, because you didn't.
Okay.
I'm just asking for a little bit more respect that you do not give us, because I do not go on there and bash you the way that you do to us, and I'm asking that you
I
be a
just-
little bit more respectful to people.
I just commented on that. Let's move
Well,
on
that's
to the
great.
next item. The fire chief helmet request.
Yes, that's.
That was the letter I put out for you guys to read. It's customary, and John, if you want to speak to this, because I'm the odd man out.
It still costs us, we already have, what is it, how it was bought,
I'm 17.
2017, so it is. Only got 2 years left anyways, and it's at its 10-year mark, so it's no cost to us, and it's usually tradition that the chief would take the helmet, they leave. They have during their career and get with them. They leave, so I mean, there's no cost, we already have the helmet, we've had ones, and that helmet's good for
8 months.
6 more years, so.
Yeah. Well, the-
And
I'm not-
I did some research, because there are no, regulations around it. Some towns might create their own regulations. I don't think we have any kind of uniform pension policy. I don't recall ever seeing that when I was
In regards to like what?
before, meaning, that the town would retain any uniforms, right?
Oh.
But what I have seen is that it's highly recommended that retired be added to any piece of uniform that
Yeah.
might be taken with
Yeah.
the individual.
It also represents all the great service you've done to our community, so thank you.
Yeah.
The helmet is well deserved.
Is this something we need to vote on, John, or is it?
Well,
I-
I would say you have to, because it's.
It is
just by
town
the town, so
property, that-
I would say that somebody would make a motion and then vote on it, but yeah, it's.
It is effectively town.
It is
Do you
town.
want to make the motion, Trish, or do you want to put in a stipulation that they're retired? Okay.
I make the motion that we allow the resigning fire chief Eric Lambert keep his helmet. And that he be tasked with adding retired on the helmet.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Diane, Tricia.
Laura?
Chris, I.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And then we're on to other business. I pulled out this payroll request just because I want some more clarification on it. So right now we have. And maybe this is gonna provide us a cost savings, because don't we have a custodian there? So are we going to save money?
We're not gonna fill the custodian into the police department. So that custodian salary will only come out of the town hall and AES.
But the salary itself is not changing. The salary, the custodian salary is staying the same.
They're hourly. So
Okay, so they're.
we're moving 15 hours, I think.
No, so I did, I looked back to the past 15 pay periods since we hired the last custodian. And she was averaging 20.7 hours every pay period, so every 2 weeks she was billing 20.7 hours on average.
To the police department or?
To the police department, that's what came through, okay. She was getting $19.33 an hour, which amounted to $400.13 every pay period, which is equal to $10,403.30 a year. By moving all those responsibilities over to our administrative assistant, she would take on all custodial duties for the police department. And with the raise that you've all received, or the proposed raise, it would be $253.60 per pay period, or $65.93 a year. It's a savings of $3,800 a year.
Okay, That's all I
Perhaps
just
we'll
wanted
just take
to,
it over and
okay,
do
that's all I just wanted to clarify if it was gonna be a savings for the town and also stress because when it was included in the consent calendar, as far as the public saw, they didn't see that this raise was coming because of additional duties. Yeah, so I just wanted to get those questions, so does anyone else have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So this is additional.
Additional duties.
So is there any concern about overtime hours?
Nope, she's gonna, if I've said it once, I've said it a million times, Jessica Kingway is a rock star.
I understand.
I can't give her the
Even
shoe
on
she
hours,
I
it's
know.
overtime.
She was doing it before the last custodian was hired, and in the last few weeks, she's been doing it all along, and the PD is Christie. So I honestly don't know how she gets it all done, but she does, so I've had conversations, she said she'd be happy to take that on.
Sounds good.
Anybody else have any questions? No?
Thank
Okay. Then I will make a motion to increase the pay rate of Jessica Kingway from $30.47 per hour to $33.64 per hour, effective for the pay period beginning April 12th, 2026.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Diana, Trish,
Laura?
Krista.
Kathleen? Does anybody else have any other business?
Yep, I do have one thing here. I want to make a motion to charge the $160,000. To charge $160,000 from the advanced paving contract amount of $188,871.56 to the road repair and paving capital reserve fund, because when we approved that, we didn't say where the money was coming from. The remaining balance,
It wasn't,
no,
wasn't that a pre-contract though, but that doesn't mean the paving? If I'm correct, that doesn't mean the paving, that was Chad just getting the first.
No, you.
So that we decided to.
yeah,
Okay, but with the roads laid out?
Mhm.
Is that the same one that I'm thinking of?
Well, there was the encumbered
Right,
funds from
that's right.
25. That was
Oh,
219,000, we used that one. This was a new bid this year,
yeah, 188.
and that came in at 188, but it was never a time where it was gonna be charged.
when did we do this one? Cause I remember that Chad came.
Earlier in the year.
Yeah.
3 or 4 meetings ago.
Cause.
When the town vote, it was a week before the town vote.
Yeah,
So we can.
well, once, but I just don't think we need it because I wish Chad was here. I know this from personal experience, what he does is he goes out and gets a pre-bid, so he locks in the prices, but there's a contingency in the contract because it's done before we go to town meeting, we don't know if we're actually gonna have the money to spend on paving.
These were bids he did.
After town meeting,
Yes,
Eric just said it was the week before.
he asked the week before, but I would imagine it closed afterwards.
I don't know the exact date now.
That's, okay,
His point was that.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that this was not contracted, that this was, he walks in the prices because he's learned over the years that if you wait later in the season, they go up. So he gets a bid on what the curbing, the asphalt, all these things are gonna be,
Right,
so that he can determine it, but that doesn't mean we're paving, we didn't actually vote to expend that, we just voted to allow him to okay that contract to lock in that price.
I'm fairly certain he's already planning on taking
But we.
from this contract.
and what we, so we did say where the money was coming from, and this motion is to charge $160,000 of that money to the capital reserve fund for paving. And the remaining balance of $25,074.87 to be charged to the highway construction services budget line. And I further motion that the remaining balance of the highway construction services budget line be frozen to offset any overspending that we might need in the 2026 year budget.
I think we
I
should
will
wait for
second.
Chad to be here for that.
I'm
That's kinda
seconding it.
I sent out, I feel like this is a little vindictive because I
So
was
I'm
using the.
I'm seconding the
I
motion.
sent it out publicly for everybody to, and we're in discussion now, I sent it out publicly for everybody to review. And then we let the chief come and speak to it. I'm a little concerned because I don't think the beginning part of this motion even needs to be made. And the end of it definitely does seem vindictive and retaliatory.
It is, it's not, I think we did keep the, you know, I already did chat it off, and we did on that Kathleen proposed, we should get the.
Seconds on.
Highway,
We have a first and a second, I'll put it to a vote unless there's further discussion. Okay, roll call vote.
Diane, I, Trish, no.
Laura,
I think, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, so I have to vote, I want to hear from Chad, I'm sorry, I have to vote no.
I'll vote no too, I think that's the prudent thing to do. But I would just say, I think the future, I know, but I'm just talking about future meetings, yes, under other business, this is my other business. I would say that even the changes I made to this agenda are in the hopes of trying to get information in front of the board to avoid emergency situations. If we're gonna, even when I change the agenda itself, you wanna send that out so people know. When you try to make a motion in other business without giving people a chance to know ahead of time or again, I think that leads to uneducated and bad decisions.
and you
Okay.
too.
Okay, what you just did, oh, you just did the vote and didn't ask for it either.
What's
You
good
put up
for
a-
one is good for another.
It's ironic that happens that way.
I do have, some other business as I mentioned earlier.
Can I comment on that citizen's comment before
No, Christian McDonald had
Okay.
other business.
description?
So with regards to the planning board, they are reviewing some proposed changes for the fees for the planning and zoning board, which is good because we're not competitive with other towns, first of all. And the town does need revenue, so thankfully they're looking at that and gonna be making some increases there. They've also been very careful to watch the legislation on planning and zoning, legislation that's coming up through the House and Senate, which I was very happy to hear, because we do have influence on that. And I did state to them, I have some experience with doing that sort of thing, for the town of Hooksett with regard to welfare. I did state that if we saw something coming forward that wouldn't benefit the town or would benefit the town, I'd be happy to go and speak on behalf of those things. So I thought both of those things were really great things to hear from that board. Hopefully we can hear the same kinds of things from other boards and committees. I would love for all of our departments to be watching the legislation and bringing forward to the board those things that you feel strongly about that we should be saying something to our representatives on. And it also informs the public. Every individual in the public can write to our representatives. So if they're hearing from us that there's something in legislation that would benefit us, or not benefit us, they too can speak to representatives and try to influence their decisions. That's okay. Yeah, my other business.
I had heard there are some pretty big things potentially coming down the pipes as far as municipal budgeting too, so I don't know if anyone's received any emails about that, there are potentially some very big changes that we'll wanna keep an eye on.
About the default budget.
Yes, yeah, the preparation, so. Okay, and it looks like John let me know that at the last minute, he did need to add a non-public item onto our agenda. What is the provision under? Okay, so it's RSA 91A 3 Part 2, Part L, which I believe is for legal.
Correct.
And you
Okay,
can have it
Yep.
nice.
So I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public.
Motion to go with the rest of the.
Second, John Savarelli, all in favor? That's it. That's what you're very useful for us,
Thank you.
right?
If 47, that's good.
Thank you so much. That's supposed to be a mix. See, you know, yeah, the idea, And I saw him at a meeting